All right, so we are going to get started now. This, everyone, is the all-white everything roundtable. This isn't a regular stream, so I don't have a time to give you for this. I'm not sure if we'll ever do it again. We'll find out in a few moments. But I'm excited to do this. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and comment if you're enjoying this content, and come on by the Twitch channel sometime. All right, so I'm going to start by introducing these amazing people who have been so kind as to join us, spend their afternoon or night with us. We'll start with, well, definitely night for this one. We'll start with Rose Wrist. Rose Wrist is a fantastic creator that we've had on this channel previously. Very intelligent individual, and I'm ecstatic that they decided to come on and join us here. They're also foreign, so I mean, I don't know if that's a deal breaker for you, but
it's 2 a.m. But you know what? Hey, it's all part of the struggle of being a white European during American panel hours, right?
These are the real issues that we got to talk about today.
Exactly.
Tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Rose Wrist. I'm a progressive political content creator. I'm currently based in Sweden. I'm most known, I'm not very known, but I am most known for research documents that I produced. I produced one on systemic racism that found that, hey, systemic racism is real. I did one on co-ops where we found out that we learned just a bunch of interesting stuff about co-ops, benefits, things they do less well, and just generally came to the conclusion, hey, they're interesting, we should do more with them, but we probably don't have the literature right now to validate a mandate in any sector or for the economy as a whole. Then I have a document on Sweden immigration because everybody uses Sweden as an example when they discuss immigration, but nobody except for people who are in Sweden, and even then, a lot of people have no idea about anything really surrounding it. So I made a document on that as well. And yeah, I'm excited to be on this totally non-controversial panel tonight, and I'm sure we'll have a great time.
It's weird that you even brought that word controversial into this. I don't know, but all right, I guess you have your own reasons for that. Next, we have Wick, another completely uncontroversial person in my community. Wick is back with us. He's joined us for a bunch of open panels. He's been with us on the Royale quite a few times and hasn't come close to winning. But Wick, I'm always appreciative of you, especially since you tend to have a different perspective than I do. So thank you for stopping by.
Well, glad to be here. I really appreciate the invite. It's going to be interesting tonight. For those of you who do not know me, you can find me at twitch.tv/deathofcertainty. My whole thing is that we always have to remember that no matter how certain we are of our position, no matter how much data we have, no matter how much we think we know we are right, we always have to keep in mind that there is a possibility that we're just wrong. There's a possibility that the person we are talking to or the people we're engaging with have a perspective that we do not. So we have to keep that in mind, and you know what? Everyone's fighting a hard battle, so just be kind. That's all.
Amen, my melanin deficient brother.
Thank you so much, Wick. All right. Next, we got a goddamn VIP. His name is Counterpoints. Counterpoints, who is a regular on the Reverie, always there with us, always willing to give his opinions. Terrible ones, but like always, like never shy on sharing them. My man Counterpoints is here back with us again. I'm so excited that you would join us, especially for this different thing.
Yeah, I am very excited to share my terrible opinions tonight. It's going to be super fun. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. I'm a Marine veteran, law enforcement veteran, and a science fiction history and political nerd. That's why I like yelling at strangers on the internet. It's one of my favorite pastimes. Basically, yeah, I'm super fucking excited. I'm hoping that since we had, I don't really know all the political perspectives of everybody on the panel, but we did have some people who were first going to join us and then ended up dropping out. I'm actually hoping because of that, we can get into some relatively nuanced conversation around this. So otherwise, I'm here for the shit flinging fest. That'll be fun too. So.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that for a little bit. I'm going to give a bit of an intro before we get started. But before we do, we go into that. Got to go to Amanda, who joined us at the last minute, and we were very, very happy that she took time out of her day. She's a very busy woman. She's got things on her plate, but she's spending time here with us, and we're really thankful. I honestly did try, in case you were wondering, tried to get more female voices here, but proved to be a very difficult task.
Prime, we call them women. Thank you, not females.
Oh my god.
Femoids.
All right. Well,
It begins.
Yeah. So I've already fucked it all up. All right. Anyway, Amanda, save me from talking. Tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Amanda Smash. You can follow me on Twitter or Twitch. I plan on streaming here in the near future to explain a whole bunch of politics. So I actually am a political consultant. I specialize in relational organizing and field strategy. And so I'm here to inform Twitch and streamers on their inaccuracies and all the stuff that they talk about. I am not that excited to be here tonight, though. I might be the only one. I'm super nervous, but yeah.
No need to be nervous, right? I think this is gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be valuable. And it's gonna be more valuable now that you're here. So thank you. All right. Next, we have Steven. Steven is back with us. Steven was so kind as to answer me immediately. I sent him a DM about joining this, right? And
Come
I'm like,
on, an a white only anything panel. How could I resist? Okay, the title alone is amazing. Okay, white nationalist, Kyle Rittenhouse, anti-BLM defender, Destiny on an all-white panel. I couldn't say no. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Catnip in the future. I know how to get you back on here. All right. Well, okay. Well, Destiny, I am very happy to have you here. If you want to say words to the audience, now's your time.
Hi, my name is Destiny, aka Stephen Bunnell, and I'm here in this safe white space to complain about whatever we're going to be talking about tonight. So, yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
Minorities in video games. That's what we're here to talk about.
What else is there in life, honestly? Let's go to Wordy. Wordy is here with us again. Wordy, we haven't had actually here in a while, but they were interested in jumping on with this conversation. Wonder why. Wordy, tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, name's Wordy. Relatively new to the Twitch stream shit. I'm an anarcho-communist. I like to be a little pragmatic. Sometimes I get too theory-brained, and I have people like Samantha bash my head in to make sure I don't get too lost in the weeds. And ultimately, I want to deconstruct power structure, so that includes the white black binary and all that shit. So that's what I really want to do more than anything. And talking about that, maybe we can get some good shit done here. Hopefully, as long as we don't have any white nationalist shit start happening, we'll be good.
Bets on who would start that. Anyway, moving on. We have Dylan Burns TV. I'm familiar with this person. It says in my notes here that you do panels. I mean, that can't be right. I think I'm on the only game in town. But it's nice that you do something on your channel. I'm always here to help small creators grow and reach their potential. How you doing, Dylan? Yes, Dylan, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that there's still somebody down there to hang out with the smaller creators and help them give a platform to grow. Because I'm just too busy producing bigger really large shows. The thing is, the thing about wrestling is, and because I know I've been doing the wrestling thing recently, is the WWE is great, right? But who doesn't like a good backyard mud show every once in a while, right? Anyway, I'm here to represent the European diaspora community, and I'm here to proudly represent their interests, which have been solely not paid attention to on this platform. And I'm happy that we have a white ally in PrimeCayes, who is going to give us the platform we so desperately needed. Thank you very much.
Okay, bonus points to Dylan for actually saying my name right. People who've known me longer don't get my name right, so that's amazing, actually. All right. Showing why he's maybe superior might be a word I would use, but I don't know. Moving on. So let's go to Let's go to Biggs. Biggs, I'm excited to have you here again as well. We haven't had you for a while. Look, literally, the thing I remember most about you is your beautiful child that like came in during
thank you.
Real. Yeah, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I just want to thank you, Prime, for putting this together, and thank everybody for coming on. I know there was some pre-panel drama going on. Like Prime said, he's going to discuss that here in a minute, but I'm happy to be here. I stream at Biggs 8500. I'm a kind of center-right libertarian type. I like to focus more on like real problem solving, hopefully, and not get so lost in the weeds. Try to find real solutions to real problems, and hopefully I'm interested to see how this goes, and hopefully we can find something productive with this conversation tonight.
Absolutely. All
And
right.
before we continue, my dog is here too. His name's Rascal. He's an asshole. Yeah, he's like right here. Can't show him, but he's at my leg all the time trying to eat my food. So
But is he a white dog?
he's an Australian Shepherd, so close enough, I guess.
Okay. So before we get started with topics, right? This has been like a long and winding road to get to this panel, right? To make this happen for lots of reasons. First of all, I didn't want to fucking do it. I created the all black everything panel, and from get go, there are people in chat saying, well, "Why don't we have an all white everything panel? How is this okay?" And whatever. Fuck all those people, right? They were either memeing, or they were like being extremely disingenuous, or they were, I don't know, oh, fucking racist. Fuck that shit. No, I didn't want to do this because like I don't see these things as necessarily needing like equal time, especially not my platform. My platform not necessarily give people equal time, just to discuss these issues, issues that I found interesting and important and all that. But this was brought up to me later on by a good friend. Call her out. Her name is Samantha Banana, and a Native American woman. I'm gonna put that out there. And she wanted to do this. She thought it was worthwhile. And so I said, sure, let's put this thing together. But I at first I said that the panelists could come up with their own topics, right? Issues that affected white people. And if things became a shit show because of them, that's out of my hands, right? Just I'm talking about what you want to talk about, and you know, really take that. But when we actually, like, as the date approached, I realized I wanted to do something completely different. I wanted to talk about like the essence of whiteness, because I think that's actually fascinating. It's a question that I've thought about, a question I've like looked into, studied, seen a whole bunch of different sources, right? And to just like understand like this baseline. I think it's a very important baseline. Like, what is whiteness? Before you can talk about the issues that affect white Americans, right? And I think that's a worthwhile thing to discuss. But before you talk about that, like, what is whiteness? Like, why and how is that in relation to other ethnicities, races? When I proposed this to the individuals in the group, no need to say their names. I'm not actually trying to start drama here. But when I proposed this to individuals in the group, some of them said they had nothing to say on this, which in itself is fascinating. Fascinating, right? That you have nothing to say on what whiteness actually is. You've had decades of life experiences, and you've never put any thought into this at all. I think that in itself is an answer about what whiteness actually is within our culture. And it made me want to explore this topic even more. So those other people decided not to join us, and that's okay. But I really wanted to explore this topic, and I'm so glad these individuals decided to join in with us. All right, so let's do it. And topic one is actually quite simple. What does it mean to be white? Start with that. We'll expand on that. So we'll start with this way. Rosewrist, give us your introduction, please.
Yeah, so when you discuss whiteness, I think there are like 3 avenues that you could take this down here. There is a biological genetic avenue, there is an academic avenue, and then there is a social avenue. I hope to God that we stick to the social avenue and don't have to spend much time on the first one especially, but I'm just going to touch on a few things right away. So on terms of like from the biological perspective, like having races, like white races as a concept in those fields of studies is generally far too broad and isn't really used in these studies at all. The connections between the so-called races are vaguely phenotypical at most. Scientists prefer to use clines to analyze these types of issues rather than race. When it comes to an academic perspective, whiteness is a field of study which basically studies the social concept of whiteness from an anthropological perspective. So different societies, where it could arise from, and I think we're going to be doing a lot of similar discussions in this panel, at least I hope we will. And then there is a social aspect of it. And as per my understanding, whiteness is a social grouping or identity that tends to be exclusionary in the sense that a lot of people, or like a majority of people who are mixed race, tend to be labeled non-white. In addition to it, whiteness also seems to be fluid in that it varies a lot by time and space, even from US to Europe in contemporary times, and then through different civilizations throughout history. So we can also see that generally whiteness tends to necessitate a form of lighter complexion, although this is not sufficient for somebody to be labeled white. So for instance, Irishmen, Germans, Italians, Spaniards, and even Swedes were sometimes not considered white. So it's by no means sufficient for somebody to be considered white. Or throughout the entirety of history. Generally, we can see today that white people are afforded certain privileges economically, politically, and socially. But, like most, identities when viewed through an intersectional lens, there are also some disadvantages. White people face certain disproportionate issues when it comes to deaths of despair and mental health issues, when it comes to opioid addiction, lack of community structures in some senses. It seems like most of the disadvantages are actually downstream from class and class advantages, and there's a lot of interesting discussion to be had there, and to really understand how the social position of white people within the world today lead to the advantages and the disadvantages that they had. So yeah, that's going to be my opening statement for this.
Thank you. Next, Wick.
So I've been thinking about this since it was proposed to me, and before it was proposed to me, quite a lot. And I want to kind of focus on what it means to be white today, for me, and in America specifically. I cannot speak much to the European experience. So I'm just not going to. I'm going to talk about what it means today, not only in the broader sense, but also in specific spaces like Twitch and online spaces as well, because there's a difference. And depending on where you are and where you go, what it means to be white will vary. What it means, what your experience as someone who is white will vary. It's not static. It changes, and it can be. And yes, it does provide a lot of privileges overall, but there are disadvantages, as Roserist was just alluding to as well. And there are very specific issues, which when you bring them up in certain spaces, just become ignored. So for me, to be very simple, white is the default in America. White is the norm. White is something that most white people do not think about, nor do they have to. However, in other spaces in America, it definitely, in other spaces such as online, it definitely is something that people have to think about and have to consider. And that is my thoughts and opening thoughts. And I think that the reaction that I have seen to this panel from certain circles and in certain crowds is very telling of why this is a necessary thing, that this was needed to talk about, because we just don't, and we need to.
Agreed. Let's go to Counterpoints.
Yeah, so I am a history nerd. I love historical information. I'm happy to be corrected at any time because history is complex and difficult. But what I would say, if you were to look at this historically, people like me moved out of Africa, moved into the European continent and further north. As a result, they got less exposure from the sun. They developed pallid skin that was more efficient at absorbing the sun's rays and decreased sun environment. And we became, slightly genetically distinct. Now, what's weird about this is the fact that, as people have mentioned, that the definition of whiteness has shrunk and grown for political convenience. Greek people are now white. Italians are now white. Spaniards are now white. Irish people are now white. This is all a matter of political convenience, which means that this definition is politically shifty. That doesn't mean that I don't think it has some utility. I used to work as a law enforcement officer. As a law enforcement officer, you do need shorthand descriptors for the way people appear in order to identify them in a quick and efficient manner. That doesn't mean that it's a good way. It just means that it's efficient. So I would be interested in talking about like the social utility of these descriptive terms, as well as analyzing it from a historical standpoint, because while I think that getting informed on the historical concept of being white or whiteness can kind of like remold the way you perceive the world in maybe a more equitable way. I think we need to talk about it from like a pure social utility role as well, because it's pretty clear that these concepts aren't going away anytime soon, whether we like it or not. And we need to talk about what's worth preserving and what's worth getting rid of.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, Amanda.
Yeah, so to be quite honest, I don't know what it really means to be white. I don't feel like I have any culture or anything like that outside, the typical what being white does provide an advantage for me. So I do understand that, but other than that, I don't know what it is. So I'm kind of here to learn.
Thank you so much. Next, Destiny.
I don't know. I view race as like it's basically generally informed by how society treats you. So for me, like the experience of race is a social phenomenon. You're white because like people treat you as white. And yeah, that's basically it for now. We'll get into more detailed conversations, but everybody else has said everything for like the social, historical, and all that other stuff goes along with as well.
Sure. Wordy.
Yeah, so like I mean, a lot of people have already covered what has been said here, but primarily the way I think of view it is like we create constructs in a way sometimes either to like categorize people or they try to create some level of justification of a power dynamic. So like you look at the whole process of slavery and how we were bringing people over through the Atlantic slave trade, and the reality is like we recognize that they're human beings. In order to justify like the treatment, that we would basically have to say, okay, well they're different because they're black, and then and the entire dynamic itself is formed. And the problem comes is we've been able to remove a significant component of like explicit, but really we're coming down to is the implicit associations and how those constructs exist nowadays. And so ultimately what it comes down to is like this level of power dynamic. And basically the thing is white, if you're white, you're like basically at the top and in control, or either like just basically the amount of like disadvantages, barriers to success and all that stuff is really just what exists within the concept itself. Like you can see it through the entire eugenics arguments, how they basically said these groups of people are inherently inferior in some fashion and they don't deserve to exist because we are like superior. And we see the culmination of it into World War II, and then how basically we've had it lessened compared to that now, but ultimately that dynamic is still there in some way or some fashion, unintentionally or intentionally. And it really comes down to is like, how do we break down those constructs that we divide people for no reason, like artificially?
Thank you. Dylan Burns.
I mean, everybody's basically covered what I was going to say anyway. It seems that whiteness, like as a category, I mean, interacts with society, like in systems of oppression, like primarily to like distinguish between, of course, like different like skin tones, but primarily to distinguish between the group, which is like, I guess you can consider like who's at the top of the totem pole and who's at the bottom of the totem pole, who is going to be treated more favorably by systems of oppression and not favorably by systems of oppression. And that seems to be the primary purpose of whiteness in America. And you can see as it shifts and changes and includes more people that it didn't used to include, like Italians and the Irish, that power that came with whiteness also shifted to those groups as well. I don't really have much more to say about it. Everybody else has covered it.
Thank you. Biggs.
Yeah, so pretty much the same thing what everybody else said. Like historically, the concept of whiteness has changed throughout history. It's been more of a tool for an in-group and an out-group. And as it's progressed, it's become more used to control others, especially minorities, and things like that. But I try to think of this from both an individual perspective, like for myself and for hopefully others, as well as like a societal perspective. Individually, I try to be as kind to everyone as possible. And I understand that with being a minority, you are going to be in more situations where you're not going to be as comfortable with being with many more people outside of your race or ethnicity. So I try to go out of my way to help, facilitate that level of comfort, trying to make things not so as awkward as they could be, because I know a lot of people, especially reactionary types, like to think of like this as an attack on, whiteness and things like that. But I really think it's more of a call to kind of bring us together to try to see how we can really solve these problems. And we can do that in an individual level by just kind of stepping outside of our own comfort zone and putting ourselves in other people's shoes and realizing like, hey, if you had to walk around in a place where it was, 10 times as many of another race than your race, you can see how that can be an uncomfortable situation. From a societal perspective, I kind of think it's our job as just being good people in general to call out things when we see inequalities or we see discrimination. If we're silent here, we're being complicit. We want to make sure we're trying to do as much as we can to be good people, to try to make sure everybody can have, to live their lives in the best way they can. So that's kind of where I like to think. But yeah, it's basically as a white person, I feel like I've got like everybody else. Everybody has issues. White people have issues. But as a white person, I have one less burden to bear than other people may have. And based on, who you are, that burden may be gigantic or maybe less. But I think that just the fact that I don't have to think about race when I go throughout my day to day, it's, that's what I kind of think of as like whiteness to me personally.
Okay. Open to the panel.
So I just want to kind of really hit on something here. Like almost everyone's definition here, and please correct me if I'm mischaracterizing, especially Biggs at the end there. We talk about white as having less burdens. That's the common kind of way we discuss it. And overall, in a general sense, that's absolutely true. However, there are certain issues that are currently affecting communities and over affecting white communities. Yes, these are problems everyone has, but just like we can talk about policing from the angle of how it disproportionately affects negatively the Black community, we could talk about some issues that are disproportionately and negatively affecting white communities, specifically white rural America and the poor and working class. There's a book that was very great. It's called Deaths of Despair and the Future of Capitalism. It was written by two Princeton scholars. And it tracks something that we've seen from the 90s to now, the huge spike, specifically in white non-Hispanic communities, of deaths of despair is what they're called. So deaths by suicide, drug overdose, things like that. And this is really hurting and hitting and destroying communities that is primarily, again, centered on these white rural communities. But we talk about it, but it's not to the same level, especially in the Twitch space. This is something I rarely ever hear discussed.
Wait, okay, so if it really comes down to it, right, is the problem that exists is we saw like migration of Black communities from the South, right? Living in the South, you see white people are around, and the problem that comes more than anything is we see it's primarily affecting white communities because it's primarily dominated by white communities due to the migration times, right? If Black people were living in these areas, Black people would be suffering under this more. It's not specifically that white people are suffering this because they're white. It's suffering because of the economic conditions. And if we had more minority people in these areas, then we would see the issue arising more.
So to be clear, I do want to focus more on the essence of whiteness, like rather than get to these problems. Like at some point I do, but like I want to focus on like what this actually is and what it means to you specifically. So we've heard a lot of the academic sense like of it, but like how do you relate to this concept is really what I want to focus on for now.
Yeah, so I would like to address what Big Z said. I think part of the reason why we had people bail out of the conversation is because they assume that this immutable characteristic, because some people on Twitter or the Twitch space think that it, basically you can attack people for being white or whiteness. Literally, I think when I announced that I was a part of this panel, somebody posted a Lord Farquaad with a single finger pointing out with the word white on top of it. Like that wouldn't be acceptable under any other circumstance, but I can take a joke. So obviously, I think that's part of it is that like it feels like because of the privilege or because of the historical definitions, because we all benefit from something that we, at least everybody in this room understands. Part of the uncomfortability is basically being in that what sometimes feels like a unilateral relationship from like a social critique persona or perspective where you just can't you basically can't talk enough shit about white people. There's really no end to the amount of shit that you can talk about white people without really suffering any kind of social consequence. The other part of that, though, that I want to mention is that basically you're right that they said, I don't have anything to add to that subject. And that in and of itself was interesting. I think the reason why that's interesting is because you don't have to consider it. You don't have to think about it when 80%, 70% of your community is white. And basically, there's Black and Hispanic folk, but those are, maybe those are your like token friends that you kind of interact with on a day-to-day basis. But everybody looks like you. Most people think like you, talk like you, speak the same language, go to the same churches or communities. It's the default. So there's no level, or at least I didn't experience this. There's no level of uncomfortability or feeling of being the other. And then final anecdote, and then I'll yield. I've been to other countries. I've been the minority in other countries. I went to Belgium. I got the shit kicked out of me because I didn't speak French. I learned to speak French pretty quickly. Also, I lived in Japan, where I was a minority and I was treated differently because I was a minority. Not poorly, but different and other. And that was the first time in my life that I felt like I was other. And I was like 20 years old at the time. So I'll leave it there.
We'll go to Rose. We'll go to Rose and Dylan. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a small thing. I can add a little bit to what the notion that Counterpoints was talking about in regards to the fact that these issues aren't often like brought up a lot, or the perception that media shits on white people all the time. There's a few reasons of this because I've thought about this previously. Number one is that some of the issues, now there's an important caveat to this. So, for example, American Indians and Alaskan Natives tend to have higher rates of deaths of despair and mental health issues than white Americans do, but out of the larger, sort of like racial groups in the US, white people tend to have it worse in certain like demographic and age groups. But when it comes to stuff like that, one of the reasons could be why this isn't talked about more is because reporting on issues of mental health and suicide, especially in the media, can get pretty complicated in the sense that there is a lot of demonstrated like social trends, such as, for example, suicide contagion, that when a lot of these issues are talked about, and if they're not talked about in a hyper specific, super well educated manner, which frankly I don't know if I trust the majority of just like media anchors to talk about in a good way, it could inspire a further wave of suicidal tendencies or poor mental health across the people who engage with that media. Additionally, we know that there's a problem with media and that it tends to lack nuance just as a whole, because I think we could all agree that, hey, on the aggregate, white people probably face more advantages than they face disadvantages, and because of that, the media isn't really nuanced enough, so it's going to focus on the advantages then as opposed to disadvantages. And then the third reason why this might be is because a lot of the difficulties that white people may face are very downstream from class, and class issues just tend to get less attention in media than what social issues tend to do. They just tend to be more approachable by media, and tends to be something that media enjoys talking about more. But yeah, I hand it over to Dylan.
So I think earlier Connor brought up something about where it's not treated like with the same seriousness when like a white person gets shit on for like being white, with like the example of the Lord Farquaad meme. And I mean, of course, I'm not like some like self-hating white person that like anytime someone's like, Lamau, Dylan, you're white, I'm gonna be like, oh God, I'm so sorry that I'm Caucasian. Like, of course not, right?
Wait, you don't have white guilt?
Yeah,
wait. So that was
but
your alternative Twitter profile? That's what you're telling me right now?
my alternative, what was that?
Your alternative Twitter profile? You were fucking shitting on me for being white from your alt?
Of course. Well, you are white. Anyway, but I will say that the reason it probably gets more attention is because the impact caused by shitting on a white person is not the same impact that is caused by shitting on a black person. Because if you shit on a white person, what you gonna say? Like mayonnaise, or like some reference to like I don't know if it's like the C word or like something like that. It's nothing that really like materially can affect white people. It's not perpetuating any stereotype about white people that's gonna affect them down the line. It could hurt your feelings, which is why you shouldn't do it. It's not perpetuating that. If you like shit on black people, the amount of negative stereotypes that you could like pile on that can help reinforce systems of oppression is 100% existent. The greatest example of this would be the fact of like all these studies showing that when black people apply for jobs with what is considered like a stereotypically black name, they're less likely to get called back, even if they have the same like background and like requirements and everything in comparison to white people. And the reason why is because of the stereotypes that are associated with the black community, all these negative stereotypes. And so, of course, like, and I do also want to bring out the fact that, like, when white people do get shit on, there's always going to be like a certain segment of the internet, like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, going to do like a 30-minute like segment on somebody calling them the C word on Twitter, right? Like, that's gonna happen. I mean, we all saw like what happened with the skeptic community, where it'd be like a tweet with like 3 likes on Twitter, and they'd make like a 20-minute video out of it. So it does get attention. It just seems to get the attention of like the worst individuals possible, and it is bad. But I think the reason why there isn't the same reaction is because it doesn't have the same impact.
I disagree with the impact thing. I think there was a time where I used to agree with stuff like that, like 5 years ago. I genuinely feel like a lot of there are a lot of like black, even people that have been on these panels that are actually just racist. But I think that it's become like such a meme to kind of just like shit on white people and everything, that like there are actually like a lot of like overtly racist black people that talk some crazy shit about like only doing like like racial dating and only doing like or whatever, that it's just kind of like an accepted norm. I think that when you have groups of people that are acting in that manner and then they start making racist jokes, for me, I think it hits way different. Like, I've got black friends, and if we want to meme about being black or white or make those kind of comments, that's one thing. But when you have people that are like, that unironically come off as like hating white people, or they're scream at you just for being white, I think it hits a lot different at that point. And I think that kind of stuff should be discouraged.
I mean, of course, I mean, any type of bullying over anybody's race, no matter who it is, should be discouraged.
No. Hold on. Wait, I don't want to weasel out of it. And I don't mean any type of bullying. I mean racist bullying.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of black people that come onto panels like this that do racist shit, not just random bullying.
I don't know if I would
like
say. I don't know if I would say a lot, but I mean, yeah, they exist.
Or maybe not a lot, but there are people that do it and engage in that. Yeah.
I mean, but sorry. I just want to be clear. Like, I'm not saying that's like a good thing or that's fine, but the impact of these things are disproportionate. Like, I have yet to see any like statistics about like people like calling people mayonnaise or perpetuating white stereotypes have had a like significant like statistical impact on the white community when it comes to employment.
Sure, but if we want to go by impact like that, if we want to go impact like that, I don't think anybody like making a mean comment to a black person on one of these panels has like kept them locked in like a ghetto or making them sell drugs. Like, that's I reject that type of thing.
Perpetuation of stereotypes can 100% have impacts on the black community.
Okay, but I understand.
I think it's important to recognize that like individual people don't function as classes. Like, when you make fun of an individual black person or white person, they're not perceiving that as a class, and they're not like that's just not the feeling that you get. Like, if I'm on like a panel and, you know, some like really like huge piece of shit is like, oh, I'm not talking to you because you're a white piece of shit. Like, my interpretation of that is, oh, well, as a class of white person, I feel like this comment actually isn't really that big. Like, that's not how anybody functions in society.
No, but like, if you think about like the whole process that goes, right, it's like there's a certain level of experiences that like generally filter in for like different people. Like, if I'm white, you know, like people make some level of comment. I'm not saying this is a good thing. Like, it's just the level of like context to those like slurs or like approaches, and I think that's absolutely shitty. The process comes like a lot of it shit that's starting to happen. Like, you know, like how a lot of women just like unironically just go with the whole process of like kill all men and shit, and like that is a problem that we need to deal with, but the degree to which it's developed, I think, is like not even compared to the degree to which like the normality of like racism against black people. I think a better thing to talk about here is like how like whiteness is a way being weaponized towards like preventing progress of like systemic issues. Like, when we look at the Black Lives Matter protests, right? We look at all the different militia groups that were forming, like the White Lives Matter, Proud Boys, all that shit, right? The process comes as we're starting to pursue these changes, these concepts of being white is like starting to be like militarized and weaponized in a way to prevent progress and growth.
So I think that it's very important to remember that right now I would entirely agree that it hits differently. For a person of color to be demonized and called racial slurs hits differently. It has a different impact. Yes. Now, however, we know the effect of long-term use of these words and legitimizing of these terms and legitimizing of this kind of practice of using race as a category to discriminate and as a category to put down people. We know the long-term effects. So while it might not hit the same now, what happens in 10 years when we normalize this behavior, when we tolerate this behavior, when we think, you know, it's okay, and we kind of laugh at the haha white jokes and things like that, it may not impact us now, but we got to look at the history of these things, and we got to look at 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. if we keep allowing this, we know what will happen because it's happened before. We can see the effects of it.
I'm going to have to ask you then to you know what's going to happen. Now I'm actually quite interested. What do you think is the worst case scenario if we allow like white jokes to continue on?
Worst case scenario? Well, I don't know, and that's the thing. That's because none of us
fear mongering.
Realistically, the worst case scenario is you've alienated the other side so much that now people can point to videos of like black people on the street saying "white man kiss my shoe," or how every cringy like black person on Twitter that now has like their Venmo in their fucking profile saying like "please send me money for being black." Like I think that kind of shit feeds into easy fodder for the right to look at like these things and be like, oh look at how fucking mad they are. Look at how much they hate white people.
It's just that pendulum and backlash coming back, right? It's just the backlash can be just so people get angry, especially when they get othered. And I think that's a lot of what we've seen already happen with the minorities is they've been having all this pent up frustration from being the other. And if you flip that around, you're going to have similar backlash.
I mean, look at how much people were. You look at how much people were screaming about this panel being set up. Like there were people in tears. There were people crying.
I got DMs telling me not to do it.
Actually, not crying like they were upset, crying like they were actually in tears that this panel was going to happen. Like, what the fuck?
Wow, that's crazy. I did not know
we'll
that.
discuss that later on. But let's go to Counterpoints. Dylan and then Rose. Okay.
Amanda, I definitely want to go, but did you want to take your shot?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is your hand up? I thought you were just leaning on your hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I think like white outside of like having power, which we all know, white people have had power in historical context and now. And so I guess when I say like I don't have any culture, what I mean is like culture today, like anything that I can that I want to have as part of my culture is one. But I don't know. I think this. You guys just keep saying things, so then I keep thinking and then getting off topic. But I don't want this to kind of turn into, but black people do this to white people, and so I kind of want to be a little careful there. I don't know.
Well, I'll definitely. Definitely not.
I know. Connor, now's the time to list your grievances.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna list all my honky grievances. Right. So part of the problem that I see, at least as a millennial, is I was raised maybe with like a social narrative that we had like conquered racism. Obviously, that wasn't true. But we were raised with this narrative of kind of like basic reciprocity. Treat everybody the way that you want to be treated. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Basically like these fundamental concepts that basically allow people to be an asshole, but also expect a certain level of reciprocity. And one of the interesting things that Wordy brought up was basically how whiteness is being weaponized. I would say that these things have always been here. There's always been some level of like white racist militias. If you look at like Missouri, for instance, is a very purple state. And it was a purple state during the Civil War. That was one of the most violent states in the Union at the time because people were of mixed race and mixed politics. And so they killed the shit out of each other because of basically this built up animosity. The reason why I bring that up is because what I'm fearful of, which I think Wick kind of alluded to a little bit, is that when you start breaking down reciprocity as a social expectation, it kind of eliminates the need to be reciprocal in your conduct, whether that's being polite, being tactful, treating people the way that you want to be treated. And what happens, because I think we all know this happens, is basically right-wing pundits will take Twitter screenshots, Twitch screenshots of people being racist against white folks and not being called out. A whole bunch of people making excuses for it. And then they'll say, look at you. They fucking hate you. And then that will be used as propaganda in order to back people into a philosophical corner in which they think it's okay to be irreciprocal to other people who are different than them. And I think that's the problem. It's not so much like whether or not we're going to destroy the country in a generation. I don't think we're going to. But losing that reciprocity is like that's a cultural touchstone of a liberal democratic society is reciprocity. And if we lose that, we're kind of fucked.
I'll be a little more spicy with it. If you think that it's okay to engage in this kind of racist rhetoric where you can call all whites colonialists and call all whites and generalize by someone's skin color at any time, you are part of the alt-right pipeline. You are leading people directly to the alt-right. You just are.
I think I see where you're going with this, Dylan.
Okay, so I just want to like reinforce this this impact thing I was talking about earlier. I don't really think anyone disagrees with me, and I will say that like yes, if you go after somebody for being like, if you be like haha whitey or something, that has a negative impact on the individual. And as talked about earlier, people don't really think it like as like large like classes of people, groups of people. People don't think in this way. There's like this person was mean to me. But even in this like proposed scenario, like the worst case scenario is what? That the mocking of white people in these jokes could lead to them being radicalized towards maybe more racist ideologies, right? Even the worst case scenario of anti-white jokes makes the condition worse for black people in that scenario.
Sure.
So just to be clear, that like there's not really a lot of outcomes outside of the individual of these types of jokes really harming white people on a material level. It's bad. It's a mean thing to do. Like if somebody walked up to me and like called me fat is mean, but it doesn't really do anything to me. It's the same. I view it in a very similar way. Like
yeah,
not...
I actually, sorry, I have a direct response to this. I think it would actually be easier as a society or as a culture to race to the bottom in a good-hearted way. And what I mean by that is basically like people understand that these things are fucking jokes. They're made with a certain amount of love and shit posting and irony and all that kind of stuff. I know this is impossible within the next century or even like the next like half millennia. But basically, as a member of the military, one of the most fun and favorite things to do.
Again.
It is this one again.
From you, Connor.
Yeah, all right. Listen, I want my N-word pass back. Okay, Jesus Christ. So, so the fucking point is that basically, when people are intimate, when they're together, when they're in communal spaces, when they basically join each other in those kind of like close, proximate, intimate spaces, you can fuck with each other in fucked up ways that you basically know is banter. And that was the fucking awesome part about what we were doing it, because basically the Jamaican black guy was shitting on the New York black guy. The New York black guy was shitting on the Houston Texan black guy. The Houston Texan black guy was shitting on the mixed race guy. The mixed race guy was shitting on me. I was shitting on the mixed race guy. The Polak was shitting on the Irish guy. The Irish guy was shitting on the Brazilian. And then basically what ended up happening, we were family. We were banting. We loved each other. We said incredibly fucked up shit to each other, but we loved each other at the end of the day.
So do you think, though, Connor, that with now how things are, especially with the social media age,
did you just say Polak?
I sure did, friend.
Okay.
Hey, listen, nobody cares about white jokes. So do you know what the Polish community is going to do? When I said the word Polak, do you know what they're going to do? They're going to do
Rose
nothing,
might have a different opinion
care.
of that word, because they're like where Rose lives.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Swede is annoyed by me using a Polish slur.
Maybe not the Swede, but the other Eastern Europeans who fucking knows.
But there is a component.
I can speak for all Europeans in this debate. I'm true.
To be clear, like Polish people are like treated like terribly in in Europe. Like they're viewed very negatively, and like there's a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah, I cannot like
so
like,
homogenized and keep to themselves. They don't want anybody to make fun of them anymore. They just hide their own little country because they just don't want to be fucked with.
Yeah, like in a lot of like countries in Europe, like Polish people are like genuinely viewed as just like a resource, just like labor. Okay, we need labor, fucking open the borders for the Poles, right? That is like a perception. That is a form of like race.
To be clear, this is like all of Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Most Eastern Europeans are this way, and are Western
also like lumped in that way. Yeah, I want to add something to what we were talking about before with the impact discussion that we were having before. I'm going to make a bit of a meta point here in regards to like a way we just generally talk about things. I think that we just generally we do too much ranking when it comes to, okay, we can say conclusively 100% and like in this broad situation, in this broad topic, that this side has it like so much worse in every way and this side doesn't, and we can just kind of leave it at there, sort of oppressor-oppressed narrative. While I agree that that narrative, not necessarily oppressor-oppressed, but hey, this group clearly has a lot of disadvantages compared to the other group, is very useful and is accurate when we're talking about sort of specific instances and specific examples and specific like phenomena in society. I think that's great. I think when we're talking about like things that might be like too broad, such as, for example, like the effect of racist jokes on different communities where, hey, you could make pretty strong arguments for both sides, and while you may be able to get most people to generally agree that one side has it worse than the other, making that ranking just generally probably isn't really like pragmatic in trying to get as many people on board as possible and being able to retain like a broader nuanced Discord when you're getting a lot of people involved. So that's just like a small thing I wanted to add there.
Yes.
So can I reinforce that real quick?
Wait, Connor, you gotta let me go. You keep
Yeah,
it's,
Come on!
It is.
Hey, from
really
one
strong.
white to another, you gotta let's go. Okay.
Fine.
That white brotherhood, all right?
So
like,
there's two components I want to primarily address here. Is like the concept of like being white or weaponization has always been here to some extent, but the problem comes specifically is we always see the reaction arise whenever like significant movements begin, right? We see with the civil rights movement, we see like all these, and we see like the modern movement, and we see all these moments like the Lane massacre happening in 1919 in Arkansas, where basically like a bunch of black workers were trying to like unionize and get better like working conditions, and we specifically see the massacre happen is when that started to occur. And the problem comes is whiteness is like basically always on the under the surface a little bit, but the minute any like actual progress begins to occur, and this is a issue I have with you, Wick, is that you say that we are like creating the alt-right pipeline. No, the alt-right pipeline exists directly in reaction to progress. They use those things as like substantiations. No, wait.
No, let him finish.
But like they use those as substantiations, but they don't need those in order to drive people further to the right. You look at the whole Gamergate community. They basically see people like women who are just saying, "Hey, we just don't want to get harassed," and then the entire alt-right pipeline shit just started like fuck women, and that's what happened, right? Is like they use those points of like weird jokes towards like white people or men as like substantiations, but they don't need those in order to have their progress made.
I think that we need to. I think you need to, or not you. I'm sorry, but I think that we need to figure out like whether or not stuff has an impact or not. Because I feel like sometimes when people talk about certain things, we act like everything has this ultimate impact, period. And then when we talk about other things, it's like, oh no, well, there's no impact there whatsoever. So for instance, to be more concrete, when we talk about like stochastic terrorism, right? We're saying that like PewDiePie, like kindly referencing Ben Shapiro is going to turn people into terrorists. That's like a pipeline that we've kind of identified. And I'm relatively warm to that idea. I think that there are real pipelines there. But then when it comes time to talking about like, oh, like anti-white memes, we can allot for like an infinite amount of that. And then we've got like 72 different like mental Olympic games that we play to say why this is never a problem, why it'll never be a problem, why it's totally okay. I think that I don't think you can have it both ways. I think you either have to understand that the things that you say are going to reverberate throughout society and have these longer or wider impacts, or it's all just memes and jokes at the end of the day, and it's not. I don't think you can just say that when white people do it, it's bad, but when everybody else does it towards white people, there's no way that can ever be bad.
Well, I don't think anybody.
We all know.
Wait. I don't think anybody asserted that it wouldn't have a negative impact, but that the impact is disproportionate. And who would it end up impacting would be different than the perpetuation of different types of stereotypes.
Sure, but the impact being disproportionate is such a tone policey argument that it's like it's literally not even worth ever uttering, right? Like if we were having a conversation about like should women hit men, the answer is obviously no. But if a guy were to come in, or if somebody were to come in and be like, oh well, when men hit women, it's way worse. It's way worse. Like if someone were to say that over and again, it would sound like okay, why the fuck are you tone policing me like this? Like, yeah, it's all bad, but that's not what we're discussing, right? So like when somebody is saying things, and it's even happened, and I'm not trying to call anybody else, but like it's even happened like in this own panel where someone's like, well, we should be really careful when we talk. We don't want to say black people do that and black people do that because that sounds really bad. It does, but when other people are talking, we can always say like, oh, white people do this, white people do that, white people do that, right? It's totally okay to generalize the other way. And I think we have to acknowledge at some point that like it's either all harmful or none of it is harmful. I don't think anybody's going to buy the idea that there's like these hyper-specific arguments to make one side okay to do it and the other side completely not.
And really, when it comes down to it,
so it'll be Wick, Connor, Rose. Oh, sorry, Wick, Connor, Biggs, and Rose. Okay.
So yeah, real just to echo what Destiny said, when it comes down to it, we know these have impacts. I know these have impacts. I talked about in my opening statement how white is the default, and when you're the default, when you're the common denominator, when you're the norm, I should say, common denominator. Ignore that. When you're the norm, you are what people compare to. So you always get compared to people, and usually because we are the norm, we are the default, we get compared to in a negative sense. It's okay to do it to us because it doesn't hurt us as much as this other group. we really don't need to be talking about the impact that the white community faces when it comes to policing, because it impacts this group more, which are true. These things are all true, but it doesn't have no impact. And when we talk about how we engage with people, and when I say you're part of the alt-right pipeline, you're not the entirety of it. You're a very small part, but you're there. And do they need it? No. But is impact bigger because we allow this? Yes.
Yeah, so I want to back this up because I think this is really fucking important for the or for the conversation. And if the hyper conservative people were here, this is exactly what I would have wanted to say to them. Because oftentimes when we start talking about race, it becomes a conversation about like comparative disadvantage. Oh well, men go to war more than women. Men commit suicide more. We go to prison more. White people are dying by deaths of despair more. This, that, the other. It all becomes this this complaint about who has it worse, basically. And Dave Chappelle has this fucking beautiful quote that I think is incredible. And basically it says that your pain does not exclude my pain, and my pain does not exclude your pain. There's different degrees, and I think we can all admit that there's different degrees, and different things affect people differently. But honestly, this absolutely addresses whenever you hear a right-wing person being like, you don't know my fucking family. We immigrated in the late 19th century. My dad or my great-great-grandpa was an indentured servant. And then after that, he fucking, shoveled shit for fucking 50 years. And then he served in World War II and he almost got his balls blown off, but he had one testicle left. So he had, my mom, and then my mom had me. When fucking white people do the who has it worse game, you can just say, hey, that's fucked up. I'm sorry. But here's all these things that I think are important that we need to address, because if we look, not even looking at it from a comparison standpoint, but here are problems that are affecting people that I care about, that I want to address. I understand you have problems, and maybe we can talk about those as well. And I think that's incredible. Like, if we actually want to move past the who has it worse conversation and start addressing problems as a community that actually loves and cares about each other, then we need to acknowledge that statement and that concept.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that a lot, but I wanted to bring up something, and I know we haven't really touched on this yet. Was I don't know how much the rest of you like looked into this topic, like researching online, because I did a lot of research on this because I've never really thought about like my whiteness, And one thing that I did notice, and I think I like to consider myself a pretty reasonable, right-leaning person. I try to be very open-minded with things like that and stuff. But a lot of the content about this subject is just so toxic. So I can definitely see how people, even if they're trying to do the right thing, looking into some of this stuff and like they get on to some of these like, discussions and just like, I know everybody talks about the lady that wrote the White Fragility book. I forgot her name, but that lady, she has a bunch of different things on there, and there's like a lot of different topics, and some of them are good. So there's some good things that really focus on like what the concept is, how it came about, like you guys talked about earlier with the the historicity of it, with the different groups being the in group and the out group and stuff like that. But I do see how well-meaning white people could be put off by this just based on like how these things are portrayed, and the kind of like what the mainstream just kind of like Googling it, if you're just some random white person trying to like look into it, you know what I mean? So did any of you guys find that at all, like any type of like just
that's half of it. Django Science Lad, dear friend, basically went on to a debate with Milo Yiannopoulos about basically like white fragility or something like that, and he wanted to talk about like the academic concept and how does it apply, and basically what are the takeaways and all that kind of stuff. And then Milo basically wanted to keep the subject solely to the terrible things that the author had said. Basically like the anti-white racist things that the author had said. So they basically, I didn't watch the whole debate, but basically it boiled down to, here's this useful frame that we could use to understand history and society better that would make the world ultimately a better place. But because it was said by the wrong person who had dog shit opinions, we're going to completely discount it. And that's absolutely something that happens.
Yeah, that debate was really good.
Let's go to Rose, then Wordy. I do want to like bring this to, because I think you've all touched on a bunch of different things, but we'll keep bouncing around. So I want to focus on a few of those things. So Rose and Wordy, and I'll try to jump in.
I'm going to take a bit of issue with something you said, Wordy, when you came to characterizing the alt-right pipeline. While I agree, and I think most of the people on panel will agree that, hey, that pipeline will probably exist anyways. I don't think that is a meaningful rebuttal or by any ways like dismisses arguments against, hey, we should really not be making these forms of like anti-majority group jokes, right? Because even if, hey, they might do so anyway, they're going to find like small tweets anyway, no matter what, 2 likes, 3 likes, they're going to use them on there anyway. It nevertheless becomes more effective if we're just like, okay, you know, hey, they're going to do it anyway, so why not just do a little bit more, right? Because, hey, one of the ways in which you can do that is that instead of the people having to go into the pipeline initially to be exposed to this type of rhetoric and then working their way up the pipeline that way, they have a higher likelihood of being exposed to the negative tweet or the negative sentiment in the first place, and then from there being put into the pipeline and going through that way. That's going to catch more people, and it's probably going to be more effective. It's also in a way similar to when, you know, there's a lot of like super or like really far left people in US politics who say that, hey, we should just run a pure 100% seize the means of production, like government yoinks everything, you know, like method of like a democratic candidate, because hey, the Republicans are going to call all of us socialists anyway. Well, you know, that's not really an effective argument. Even though they're going to do this thing anyway, we should certainly not make it easier for them to do this thing and to discredit us because of it, or, you know, whatever. And the final thing I just want to say here is that, hey, I think that a lot of things we're touching on when it comes to like ranking impacts and what Connor said is just, and I will preach this to my dying breath, my favorite method of analysis of just doing everything online politics related is just intersectionality. Have a nuanced, multifaceted, you know, double-sided perspective on things. Try to refrain from absolute and try to refrain from rankings, and typically your rhetoric will be a lot more accurate and will be a lot more nuanced and will be a lot more approachable to a wider range of people.
So yeah, like just to respond back, since like you called me out,
Your
like
turn.
I agree.
Anyway.
I agree that we shouldn't say that shit, right? I agree with you all on all aspects of that. We shouldn't like make those jokes, but we do have to recognize, like, to some extent, to which certain behaviors like require more time and investment compared to others. So like people like making anti-white jokes, we definitely need to stop that. It's just the amount of time that we would need to spend on comparative different things is kind of like where like I think the focus should be, is like,
Wait,
if we talk
why?
about this, so like no, like, so it's coming down to like a matter of like which have like more consequences and which are like more developed.
You
and
could
how
do
much
Would
time
you
we
simply.
would you would
spend
you
on it.
wait, I'm curious, would you ever use this argument? So this is because this is the most common rebuttal ever. BLM, why do you care so much about black people getting shot by the cops? If you really cared about black lives, you should worry about black on black crime. Why wouldn't somebody just use that same argument then, if that's the argument that you want to use? That like,
Well,
this isn't really worth as much attention because it's not like that much of some shit is coming from this.
Well, it really comes down to is like how much data and how much shit we have to support it, right? When we talk about black on black crime, it's usually framed in a way to characterize black people as some inherent violence to it. But then when we talk about like anti-white jokes, there's a rising community of people that are going to shit on people. And I say, hey, we need to tell them to shut the fuck up or get off the internet. But like we still have to realize the social level itself not necessarily outweighs like the systematic issues itself.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think-
nobody's
yeah.
saying that. That's the thing, again, is that like every time we talk about anything related to any of this, we have to like caveat and couch so carefully what we're saying. It's like, okay, listen, you shouldn't say fuck all Mayos, I want to white genocide everybody. Okay, but I understand when I say that doesn't mean the systemic problems that white people face are on the same systemic level as black people. It's not the same type of oppressive power behind these slurs. Like, it's like, why not just say like, probably shouldn't be racist towards people, period. Like,
Yeah, like I agree with you 100%.
yeah, but like
Well-
that's it. Not like we probably shouldn't be racist towards people, but I understand that if black people are racist towards white people, it's not gonna have the same type of systemic power as black people being racist against by other groups of people. Like, why not just say like we probably shouldn't be racist towards white people, period, right?
But this is all
Problem
new.
nuance?
So go ahead, Dylan.
So is the problem like nuance? I mean, if the whole section is like just don't be racist to people, then the whole panel's over. We're all good. We're just being honest about the impacts of that. I mean, even you admitted
but
that wait. Even you admitted that the worst case scenario in your mind for these anti-white jokes would be worsening the condition for black people. Isn't that something that should be noted?
Okay, that's
Well, I mean, it worsens the conditions for white people too. I mean, if you want to get
Yeah,
technical,
on
right?
the individual, yeah.
how
Well,
reasonable.
no, on
the
anybody.
worst
But
case
I'm just saying that, like, I'm saying part of the reason why we're having this discussion on this panel is because we can't just say that, like, yeah, it's probably not cool to make jokes against white people. It's probably not good, right?
I
We
mean,
have to like
everybody
caveat it.
acknowledge
Let's
that.
like what?
So I
Everybody
think,
acknowledge that.
yeah, like
So-
I think the
okay,
important
so
thing
hold
is
on,
to
hold on,
think
hold
of
on.
why these jokes hit.
Pause. Hold on. Pause. Okay, so this is, I think, a good time to jump in here. So the question was, what is it to be white, right? Like, what is whiteness? And I find it interesting that the conversation has like shifted to like harm towards whites, especially like in the form of jokes. Now, I don't know. So I don't. I
But how is that
acknowledge-
funny? What do you guys talk about the all black everything panel? Is it usually celebrating like African culture, or what? Like, what do you mean by that? Do you think that's unique to?
Sorry. What exactly are you trying to say?
What you generally, if you're having a panel related to like this is a space for this group of people, generally the understanding is that it's like a safe space for this group of people, meaning it's probably going to be like an errands of grievances, right? I haven't watched a lot of all black everything panels because I'm usually streaming. But like, are you just, when you do an all black panel, is you just like, hey, today we're going to talk about some of the cool things of like being black, because you're like, these are grievances that we generally have with society, like we want to talk about them on this panel.
No, yes, that's true. We do that. However,
Okay.
like I said, and that's okay, right? Like in fact,
yeah, I'm not saying it's not. Yeah.
No problem. And that's where we're originally going to take this. But like, it's interesting that like I wanted to define whiteness, and it comes down to harm. So okay, let me give you a little bit of background as to why I wanted to do this particular topic in the first place. All right, one, when I was in college, I took this class. That was a racial relations class, and we would break out into groups, and we'd have discussion and be mixed, right? Some white people, other people who are black, minorities, and all that stuff, right? And if you, and the answers that came out of there were interesting, right? From people just trying to work these things out. I thought all that was extremely valuable, and it got me thinking about like what whiteness is. Beyond that, though, there's this project online. I believe it's called the White Project or the Whiteness Project, one or the other, which is fascinating. In this project, they this I guess a videographer or whatever, he talks to white individuals, and all he asks them is, what does it mean to be white? It's split into two, right? So the original group was like these middle-aged group of individuals, and then he did like a second season of this, and it was younger individuals. The original group, right, the middle-aged group especially, it was interesting because almost invariably, when they simply asked the question, what does it mean to be white to you? It involved blackness. So they juxtaposed being white to being black, right? Now, some of them did it in a straight up racist way. It got pretty bad there. But other ones didn't, but still like brought in blacks, right? Like that was like an opposing force to their whiteness, right? Which is amazing. There's an amazing thought.
I think you're loading that a lot. When you say opposing force, like these are just like diametric things that have been, or like a dichotomy that's been proposed to us in society, right? As you, like somebody mentioned earlier, the words like oppressor and oppressed or whatever. And like when we talk about, my guess, I don't know this, but I'm going to guess that there's probably a lot of German people that feel the same, right? Where like, if you know, you can be proud to be Swedish, you can have a lot of nationalism in all these different types of European countries, but when like Germans are like, yeah, fuck yeah, German history, it's like, hold on, chief, right? Like,
take a break.
It feels like,
Hey, we need some
like
fucked up eugenic shit as well, okay? Maybe some
Take a lap, Germany.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like it feels like it's kind of like couched in that way, right? Where it's like, oh, cool, like everybody should be proud of who they are. But if you're white, remember all the people that you genocided, how fucking horrible you are, and how disgusting you are, and it's like when the conversation has constantly been like shoved down your throat like that, like unironically, then it wouldn't surprise me. Like when someone's like, well, define what it means to be white. Oh, well, white means to be like an oppressor, a colonizer, a destroyer of people, somebody that's systemically privileged, like white privilege. Like these are all the things that come to mind. And it's like, I don't think that should be that surprising. That's kind of like how we framed these conversations socially now for, I don't know, like 20 years.
You know what's interesting though? Can I hit on that?
Hold on. Okay, so this dual dynamic that you're talking about, that's interesting because when I posed this same question to black people, what does it mean to be black, right? At the beginning of All Black Everything months ago, right? There was this dichotomy too, and that white people got brought up, and they looked, and it was a bit of a mirror that I could see there, right? I don't think. I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry for interrupting. It's just it's on the tip of my tongue. The weirdest part about being a millennial, I swear to God, was I was raised like the 1776 Project by Trump, where it's like, we need a pro-American narrative. Dude, I was already raised on that shit. I was raised on a pro-American narrative. I was raised on a pro-European narrative. So basically seeing either nuance or negativity come out for the Zoomers or Alpha when it comes to like European history or when it comes to American history. It's actually really interesting because I think that like if you can take the two together and kind of balance them, there's a lot of like cognitive dissonance between the two. Like, America's fucking awesome. We won World War II. We went to the space. We went to the moon. We did this. We did that. We fought the Civil War in order to free slaves. We did all this kind of bullshit. And basically relearning all of the negative aspects of like European and American history. I actually think it brings like a high level of like nuance and interest to history in general, because you can see how things are narrativized to benefit certain people and how it can be propagandized. One of the things that I bumped into continuously as a problem on these panel shows is I talk about how we need a unifying American narrative. And I'm literally told by lefties or leftists or minorities, no, we don't need it. And that's so weird to me, because basically it's like, if we don't have that unifying narrative, I have no idea why would we.
I want to comment on this because this is very important, and I think Destiny saw something similar that kind of leads to this.
Let's go to Wick and then Rose. Okay.
We can talk about, and it's perfectly okay for almost any other group other than white to have pride in their group, to be proud of being Black, to be proud of their Latin heritage, to be proud of their indigenous heritage. This is something that we see. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There is no, that I can think of off the top of my head, good space where you are okay to be proud of your white heritage. And there's very good reasons for that. There's very good historical reasons for that. So when Counterpoints makes the point, I'm sorry, it's reversed here. The Counterpoints makes a very, very good point that we need a unified American heritage, is because as a white person, that's all I can take pride in when it comes to. That's one of the only things that I have as a group, as a community, that I could take pride in. I could be proud of being American. And that is something that it's harder to do now when we have these competing narratives of what it means to be American. So when we say, what does it mean to be white? And to answer your question very directly, it means that you can't really be proud of your heritage, and for good reason. So you have to find other things to be proud of.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. On that thing, real quick, just as an input as a music major, like if you were to ask like why are you proud of being Black or whatever, like I imagine you could make like musical arguments, right? Like, oh well, I'm really proud of the fact that like Black people contributed like a very unique genre to American music, which was initially blues and then jazz, and which is now like blues, jazz, hip hop, and then now that's like the worldwide most popular music. But if you're white and it's like, oh, I really like a lot of the white contribution to music, like I really like Wagner. Oh, well, that guy was played by Nazis, or oh, I like classical music. Oh, that was stolen by other people, right? Could you imagine like in the same framing, like if white people had, if it was completely reversed or whatever, and white people had invented the blues, people would frame that as like, they didn't invent that, actually. They stole that from the other people. They stole it and they just added a little bit and changed it. Because really that's all blues was. It was mainly copied from classical music, which it was, but then it was changed in subtle ways, and then eventually that's where like the blues came from. But like because it's another type of like race that did it, we don't frame it that way. And I think that it gets a little bit ridiculous at some point where it's like every single possible good thing that you have as part of your like whiteness gets relegated to this like evil space where, okay, that might have been good, but it was stolen from these people and taken from these people and it oppressed these people. And it's like, damn, like you're not going to tell me that like nobody else oppressed anybody, nobody else like Jesus Christ, like it was a little ridiculous sometimes.
This is a fascinating framing, and I definitely, oh man, I really want to jump into this because I think it's fascinating. All right, so we'll go to Rose first, and then we'll go to Dylan and Connor. But I really want to dig into what Destiny and Wiki just said. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can clear up a few things in regards to why the conversation isn't going like in a way that you may have like predicted it or like wanted it to go in. I think it has mostly to do with but all of us like more or less agreed with like a general description of whiteness and what it means and stuff like that. And when you get on like these panels, when you're discussing like a different like social group, people tend to focus more on the negatives and positives because, we tend to want to like find issues and then propose solutions to them so we can bring people up. That just tends to be like the general trend when it comes to the way like that people tend to have panels when it comes to like discussing social groups specifically. On the point you said about the opposing forces, now I haven't watched this interview or this piece of media that you're you're talking about here. So I may be completely wrong, but what I can imagine it like another maybe like more nuanced framing of it is that it's not so much like an opposing force in the sense that they're like clashing against each other, more so much as, hey, you know, if you're white, it may be the most comparable thing to compare yourself to another often talked about racial group, such as like being black, for instance. How, and in addition to that, when people who aren't like super well educated on topics, people tend to default to comparisons between one of the things they're already familiar with rather than have a hardline definition for a given thing when like pressed on it. So that could be another reason why, you know, other racial groups or like the black racial group was brought up in that specific situation, because people tend to default to comparisons rather than hard definitions if they're put on the spot. So yeah, I just want to add that.
That's an interesting explanation. We'll go to Dylan and then we'll go to Connor. Amanda, let me know if you want to jump in. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping. Okay,
I
buddy?
do want to be clear. I think a lot of this has to do with like assimilation, with the fact that the vast majority of white Americans voluntarily came over here and then assimilated in large part to American culture. But white Americans also, as a whiteness, like white culture, as like a monolith, yeah, it isn't really there isn't like celebration of that, and it has to do with two factors. The first factor is things like white pride and white power is associated with some pretty like scary stuff generally, and nobody really wants to put themselves next to that. I'm not going to put myself next to that. Hope nobody else here is. The other thing is also whiteness is such like a monolithic kind of ever-changing thing. It was like originally it was the Brits and the Germans, then eventually the Irish were included, then eventually the Italians were included. It was this amorphous blob.
You forgot
that
about
never
the
kept
Swedish
changing.
struggle.
Yeah, the Swedish struggle, of course. But Americans, there's still many Americans celebrate things like St. Patrick's Day and Irish heritage, and there are like certain, for example, there are instances though where like the heritage of like white people were like erased, and sometimes it's for like geopolitical reasons. There is the example that I always bring up of the German community, the American German community, which during World War I was literally lynched. There were anti-German lynchings during World War I, and post World War II, the German like culture and a lot of communities in the United States which spoke exclusively German were just wiped off the map. And the few that are still like speaking German like exclusively and have their German American dialects are like few and far between, and they're like cultural enclaves that I hope can be preserved. So there's a lot of different reasons why, like, while you'll see like a lot more like Irish American culture being celebrated, definitely as they have become like more prevalent in the police force, stuff like that. But German American culture was like erased from like the planet, and the German Americans were literally lynched during the First World War, like strung up from trees. So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah, so Connor, I'll go to you next. But like, okay, this is interesting stuff. Dylan, I think it's interesting that we brought up celebrations of whiteness. You specifically brought up the Irish, right? And maybe you brought up Italians, but like that would be the other one, right? And like that kind of celebration of whiteness. But of course, as you said yourself, these groups were excluded from whiteness, right? So like my understanding of
I did say that, yeah.
My understanding of this, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong though, is that those celebrations, right, like St. Patrick's Day, that came up, you know, to from an oppressed group, right, or at least at the very least an outside group, trying to keep their culture intact, try to celebrate what they have, right. So I think that's really interesting. But comparing that to other groups that I guess the WASPy groups, right, that didn't have that experience, that maybe they don't have the same analog specifically, right? Maybe you guys can think of something in particular. But I want to go back to this white pride and black pride thing, right? So for one thing, for dealing with people from the African diaspora, right? Like for me, when I talk about black pride, well, that black pride includes everything that is blackness and this vague gelatinous blob. Why? Because my history was completely erased. It's gone, right? I don't have the option of going back and being proud of my Greek heritage, my British heritage, or whatever, right? Like I don't have that. That was specifically taken away from us. So there's no choice about African when it comes to the people of the African diaspora to talk about black pride, because that's all that we have. And that comes with a certain set of connotations, a certain set of history that the term white pride doesn't. That doesn't, though. And this is
true. This is true, but you have to understand at the end of the day that even if there's like a million legitimate reasons for all of this, it doesn't make the individuals feel any better, right? Like
Oh, okay.
Why would you want to be proud of something that's immutable characteristics? I always
Okay,
found
but
it to
that's
be
a
a
whole
silly
other
thing.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's
I mean,
another
a lot of people
discussion.
are, but
Prime, I found it.
Amanda,
I found it interesting that you just explained that, because that's exactly why I don't really feel like I have any culture or anything to be proud of. Because we have like taken other cultures in order to, kind of mesh ours and assimilate. And so, yeah, that was really interesting to hear you say that, because that's kind of why I don't have anything that ties me to that. And I don't know if that's because I'm white. I don't know if that's because my mom was adopted and I didn't know my dad. Like, I don't know any, So like, yeah, that was interesting.
I want to just point
no,
that out.
I was, because I want to tackle on something she had said too, right? Amanda, when you talked about not having culture. So this is the answer that I heard from my white friends when I was talking about in that race class that I referred to previously, is that white people don't have a culture. That we don't have like that especially that word culture, I think is interesting, because it was like an outside thing that minorities have, right? We celebrate, right, Black culture today, right? We're celebrating Native Americans or gay or people who are homosexual, right? And like I know that's not the same thing, but like still like a general LGBT culture, like that's always something outside, right? But I think that's part of it is because the invisibility of whiteness and how like all those cultural norms are baked in. So Connor was talking about, we had this discussion previously about this unified American story, right? I think we did have a unified American story previously. You did have a quote unquote unified culture, right? But that was when it was white culture. When when white supremacy was more of an accepted thing, all other stories were wiped out, right, or suppressed. And so we had this unified culture. But now that narrative is being challenged and being rejected, then it's left. Well, then what is America, right? And I don't remember what my answer was to you when you brought this up to me. I think I fought you on this. I probably did, because I enjoy doing that. But like this, I'm not sure. Think of this now. My answer could change on this in the future, but think of this now. I'm not sure if there's all that much value in creating this unified idea, because we are so many people, right? Unless that itself is a story, right? But okay, let's go to Connor.
Yeah, sorry, that was fucking beautifully said. So I'll address it in a second. So I think the cool thing about again, like splitting this generational gap between like the millennial narrative versus the Zoomer narrative is relearning history and learning it from different perspectives. So I did take a West African history class. One of the books that we read was Things Fall Apart, which is basically a story about colonization from an African perspective. They basically recreated the not really pre-colonial culture, but pre-British contact culture, basically from oral histories from the people in the area, and then kind of reconstituted a narrative. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that a lot of people basically were like, oh, this is a story about white people bad. Well, kind of, yeah. But what was also interesting about it was that it wasn't like this perfect culture that like, white people, European colonials just spoiled. There were interesting and strong parts of the culture that basically stood as a social structure before colonial contact. And then some of those things had really positive impacts, and some of those things had really negative impacts. And then seeing the impact of colonial contact was just like incredibly interesting, because it threw all the social structures for a loop. And so I just wanted to bring up that part of the power of relearning history from multiple perspectives is realizing that history, like you cannot pick a single person with an immutable characteristic and say everybody who shares this immutable characteristic is evil. It's just not true. Everybody does good shit and everybody does evil shit. One of the things that I wanted to bring up before I address your unified American culture point is basically that, weirdly enough, I know Amanda probably has her own reasons for not identifying with her heritage, but I think part of the reason why is because I've heard this argument before that white people don't have a culture, and that the reason why Black people have a culture in America is because they were basically like deracinated. They were told that they couldn't like connect to their roots. They were told that they couldn't connect to their language or their culture or the things that they had before they were forcibly enslaved and moved to the Americas. Well, what I would say is that there's almost like a voluntary deracination on behalf of white people. I'm Irish. I'm ethnically Irish. I don't speak Gaelic. I don't know shit about Ireland, except for we used to like to fight English people, and we like potatoes and like fighting English people. That's all I know about it. And I know I have a high carb tolerance. Besides that, I don't identify with being Irish. I identify with being American. So I think being a white American is in itself an identity that's weird and amorphous and fucked up, but still very real. And then I want to address your unified American culture, and then I'll stop talking. So when it comes to unified American culture, I think that is a beautifully said point, that basically it was a white dominated narrative. We freed ourselves from Great Britain, except for the black people. We were pioneers. Don't look into how we treated Native Americans. It was a little bit fucked up. We conquered the West. Don't ask how we did that. We tried to buy the West Coast from Mexico, and they declined, so we just took it. We stopped Germany in World War II. Well, we ignored a whole bunch of like really horrific fucking shit that was going on at the time until we were forced to participate. So there's this the real narrative was white dominated and white written. I think the challenge of the 21st century is taking the Native American perspective, taking the Black perspective, and taking the Hispanic perspective, because we all have people from these demographics in America now, and reconstituting a narrative that works for everybody.
Okay,
I think that's important.
One question on this, though. So is this problem that you're referring to, is this a problem of us all? Or is this a problem specifically for white people, right? Because of the Black narrative, Black people keep telling our narratives, right? We keep trying to get down open our history, our impact on this nation, right? Advancing our own culture, our cultural additions to the American pot, right? Same thing with Native Americans. They're screaming, right, to let their history be known and so on, right? But you're talking about this history, which is a bloody history, which, like most countries, is a fucking bloody history, right? With a lot of shamefulness. But it seems like to me, and you can all tell me what you think of this. It seems like to me the people are having trouble accepting the complete storyline that you're talking about will be white people, right? Because it doesn't put you in the best light, right? If you look at all of you as a group, but like it doesn't put that history isn't something to be quote unquote proud of, right?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. So
go
what
ahead.
so what I just heard, and like I said at the beginning, I was kind of here to learn. It sounds like white people just really have a conquer culture, right? Like, I guess.
Well, but that's everybody in all of human history, right?
Yeah, human history is a history of atrocities one towards another. This crosses cultures, boundaries. It's something that brings us all together.
That's true, but
I
it's more prominent in white people.
No, I think white people just happen to do it better than everyone else. I guess it seems to be how human history went.
And we were the most recent.
That's true as well. Both of those points are true. But I just want to kind of touch on like
it'll be Wick, Dylan, Wordy, Rose, okay, and then Justin.
But when we talk about like these things and how, and you're very right that Black history needs to be shared. The Black perspective needs to be shared, needs to be heard, needs to be more widely dispersed. Indigenous history needs to be shared, needs to be heard, needs to be more widely dispersed. That said, there needs to be something because this is a lack people are feeling. Amanda put it very distinctly, very, very good, that she doesn't feel connected. She doesn't feel like she has a history. She doesn't feel like she has that kind of thing that she can lean on to. And these things have a value to some people. Other people are perfectly fine with it. Other people are perfectly fine with identifying with their accomplishments. And I think that's probably the best way to go, but we cannot deny that there is a social value in having a shared and communal history that one can point to and say, I am part of this, and it's a good thing. The problem, because of history, because of the things we've done, or not we, I haven't, I don't think anyone here has, but maybe our ancestors have done, is we cannot point to, and because of the society as it exists, the moment you try to point, as Destiny put, the moment you try to point to any one thing, people will say, well, that's problematic, and they'll list you reasons why. So the only place you have to voice these these kind of points of pride are in really toxic spaces that we don't want people hanging out in. And the only place you can voice these points of pride are in really, really sketchy places. And we need to provide a space and a way for people to do it in a way that isn't demeaning of other cultures, that isn't going to lead to problems, because it has a value.
Oh, let's go to Dylan.
So, I mean, this might be mean, right? But I feel this is gonna be really mean. It almost feels like I feel like if you kind of have pride in like you being white and you like invest a lot of time into that, you kind of sound like a loser.
Would you say
Know
the
what I
same
mean?
to any other race of person?
Well, did you let me finish? Well, I can finish. I was about to extend into that.
Okay.
And I would say to an extent, even I could understand that to a certain extent, like even like for like really any race I would somewhat apply it to, but I do want to say like put like a little asterisk there. I'll get to that in a second. And the reason why is I could not immediately understand, right? Like how maybe like if I like confront it more, being prideful in something I didn't contribute to and was handed to me. Being prideful in something that I did not contribute to, I did not help with, I did not put anything into. This was something that was given to me. It'd be like if my mother gave me $10,000 and I was like, I'm proud of the work I did to get to this point. It feels kind of weird. Now I do feel a little different about a different part of me, and that's the fact that I'm one of them queers, one of those homos, right? I look at the women and say, no thanks, right? That's a different part of my identity. And I don't really I'm not happy or prideful in the fact, because that was just given to me. But I feel like if someone was to say gay pride to me, I'm more open to that because of the history around how homosexuality has been shunned historically, how homosexuality has been thrown to the wayside and criminalized historically. And for me, it's less of a thing of investing saying gay pride is less I'm actually proud of being gay and more of a kind of like a fuck you, I'm gay and I'm not going anywhere type of statement. It's more it feels more like I'm flipping someone off and I'm not going anywhere, less than me feeling pride of that. And
Can I ask you a question?
So I would universally apply that. It feels weird to be proud of something that was handed to me.
Can I ask you a question regarding that, if I may? Do you find that your this pride in your gayness, gay pride, has a value to you? Does it help you? Does it have a value? Do you value it?
The value that I could derive from leaning into it is it can help with my confidence in myself, considering the way I grew up was being told thank God my only son ain't gay and homosexuality is of the devil, and that's the type of messaging I got growing up, right? And so being prideful of it feels less like an actual oh, I'm super proud of it, and more of a coping mechanism.
I understand.
I'm trying to deal with the fact that there is
I get it.
legitimate shame, and I still somewhat feel around that. And so again, it feels like something that I'd rather actually not even have to do. I'd rather not be proud of the fact I'm gay. I'd rather it just be a fact. If you're a dude, Dylan's right here taking offers. That's what I should look at it as, not oh, let me just beat the gay drum for a bit and have to do the parade.
And I understand, but as you said, it has some sort of value to you as a coping mechanism and things like that. And you say that anyone who values something that was just handed to them, it's kind of weird. And I would agree with that. I think that
it feels like the people this is gonna get really weird. It feels like people who haven't accomplished much trying to find their way to live vicariously through people who are long dead and say, well, I didn't accomplish much, but fucking Alexander the Great conquered all this land by the time he was 22, while they're fucking dusting Cheeto dust off their balls, right?
Okay. But not everyone is at the same space of maturity that we are. And so we have to understand that people need to be proud of something. And if you don't have anything to be proud of, if you're young, especially, you don't have much you've accomplished in life, you need something. And we have to, it has a value. And I would agree with you on the whole that people need to be proud of their accomplishments, because why would you be proud of something you were born with? I don't understand, but it has a social value. And it's just the plain fact that, as you said it, the very first thing you said, anyone who prides himself of being white is a loser. We consider them a loser society, and for good reason. But they need something, don't they?
So Interesting. Oh my god, such
I don't
interesting
know.
stuff here. But so I know Rose has a direct response to this. I'm gonna go to Wordy, Steven, Biggs, Connor. Okay.
Yeah, my thing was going to have to do with Destiny and Dylan's exchange, so maybe I should wait until Destiny gets back before I get to that. So feel free to bring someone else.
Destiny's taking a big old shit.
Seems
So
so.
as soon as it gets back, we'll lighten them. Amanda, I'll put you on the list. Okay. Let's go to Wordy.
Okay, so hopping off, taking the gauge drum, putting it in my circle, and beating it a little bit. So basically, what it comes down to is not the inherent quality of it, right? Nobody is proud necessarily of the fact that they're black or white or all these different components. So wait. Specifically, when we talk about pride, we talk about the experience of overcoming diversity. And so, white people, specifically white people, haven't faced those diverse issues, right? Like when we talk about being queer, right? There's a mixture of spite, like Dylan said, but it's also the fact I grew up in Arkansas, right? I was raised in a Southern Baptist church, and they say homosexuality sucks, and all these different components, and that affects how I behave. I still have a problem interacting with cis men because on some potential romantic level, because there's that thing that's been brained into my brain that says that's wrong. And I'm the process of me overcoming that, being able to date men, is pretty significant for me, because the reality is the world around me still says this is wrong to do. And it's a lot easier to date women because there's the perceived naturality to it, right? I'm perceived as a man even if I'm non-binary, and if I date a woman, it's a lot easier, and it's a little easier compared to dating a cis man versus dating someone else who's non-binary. So that is the experience, right? And for being black, overcoming systemic racism, overcoming all these components to history, and to be where it is, it's not just the effort that your ancestors committed to, right? You could be grateful that the people that came before you were able to put you in the situation you are now. But pride specifically is very different in the connotation of being white, because the diversity, the adversity, does not exist there.
Yeah, I mean, there's still parts of me where I'll be going on a date with a guy, and I'm having a wonderful time. The person is a wonderful human being. They're enjoying talking to them, and there's still this sometimes this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach of this thing that's been dug into me is this is fucking disgusting, and it's this is wrong, that thing, and it's it's there because it's been kind of shoved in there from just years of having it kind of beaten into me by either popular media, by the church. I mean, when I was younger, I went to a church. It was women here don't wear jeans, right?
Which denomination?
It was just Protestant.
I'm sorry.
And I don't, my gosh, and it's hard to think of. So I guess for me, really when it comes to why I view gay pride a little differently, it is me in a way trying to deal with those emotions of shame and almost that have been beaten into me as a coping mechanism, which is, so again, when it comes to gay pride, for me it's not about I'm so happy of all hail Harvey Milk, right? It's more or less I just want people to know that it's okay to be gay, and so it's a lot less for me about actual pride in it, and more just trying to spread the message that this is a perfectly okay thing to be.
But when we talk about, and I want to address specifically
you
something,
you gotta be very quick, because I gotta move on. People are waiting on this list.
Just the fact that, again, people are saying white people don't face adversity, I think is very harmful to the discourse. Of course, it's not true. We know that white people face adversity all the time. It's just different, and that's okay. But to act like it doesn't happen to them, I'm not comfortable with that.
So let's go to Rose, Steven, Biggs, Connor, Amanda.
Yeah, so I have something to add in regards to Dylan and Dusty going a bit back and forth about and then he's left again.
Yeah. All right, I'll
okay, throw to someone else.
We'll wait on it. All right. But I think he's going to the fridge. Maybe he'll be back in just a second.
While
we're waiting,
I doubt he's going to be going fast anytime soon.
Let's go to Biggs while we're waiting.
Yeah, so I still kind of, like I said earlier, I just find it kind of cringe in general just to have pride and things that are immutable characteristics in general. I think that pride should be more of a mechanism for being prideful in your achievements and things like that. And I'm perfectly understanding with what Dylan said. I think he was kind of going down that way too, is he doesn't necessarily feel pride because he's gay, but I think he feels pride in gay because of the achievements that he's been able to overcome in his own life, maybe, or maybe just as the movement as a whole. But also, I think back to our other point a little bit, kind of previously, I find it also very toxic to keep bringing back this, like, as white people being, punished for the sins of your forefathers. I think that only leads to bad, toxic, like, just toxic feelings in general. Like, I think it's perfectly fine to, like, be understanding of, like, the past, and we need to understand the past. But I think that when we try to, like, bring it down, like, oh, white people are bad because of what they did, 200 years ago or 150 years ago, I think that only breeds more dissent and not, bringing us closer together. So I think once we can move past that, like when we can kind of understand it and then move past that and then try to focus on more things, like how can we actually help each other?
So I find the words that you used just now very interesting, right? Saying that white people are bad because of this history. Is that actually the conversation that people? Well, okay, some people are having. You can. I'm sure you can point me to a Twitter account, right? Just right. But okay. But is that the actual conversation that people are trying to get to?
So
that white people are bad, because this is what I hear, and it happens all the time. I've seen this one happen on stream. I definitely want to hear your response. I see this on stream where we'll bring up like history, right? Or we'll bring up some sort of cultural artifact, right, that has something to do with white Americans and maybe has a history of oppression, right? And then it's like, oh, how are you calling me racist? How am I bad because of this? But I'm not sure that's what they're actually trying to do. I don't think that's what anyone's trying to do, is to say that white people, or most people, white people are bad, right? That's like the CRT conversation that people are having, right? Well, it brings up a history and talks about like how these laws systemically oppress people, right? How the legal system and race intersect. But then it's like, well, you're trying to tell me that white people are bad because white people instituted these laws, right? That I'm bad because white people instituted these laws. But is that what people are trying to say? Is that what you think?
That has been told
hear?
to me more than once personally. That has
So-
been told to me more than once personally.
Okay.
I've been told I shouldn't stream because I'm white. I've been told I should shut up because I'm white. And now I get it that this sounds like, oh, look, poor me, I'm being oppressed. No, but again, like if I had done that to you, if I had said to you any of these things, I would rightly be excoriated for it. But when they say it to me, everyone just kind of shrugs.
What do you think?
So yeah, so I think that I don't think that that's necessarily the take for everybody, but like just going on and like kind of doing some like research for this topic before the panel, this week, I just found so much of the stuff that I found was a lot of this kind of like the sins of the past. Therefore, we need to have things like not necessarily like reverse racism per se, but just like things that were very kind of dicey to me, and things that like wanting white people to like give up their power to making sure like, hey, I want to just step back and like make sure that you always give the black person the right way. And I try to, as a person, try to put myself in a situation where I can be as helpful to everybody as possible, regardless of your race. But I try to be conscious of doing this. And like I said at the beginning, my opening statement was that I think we have a both individual avenue to tackle this in our own personal lives, and then in a societal way as well. Because like obviously like one person can't change racism, right? But if everybody chips away at that implicit bias, and everybody just kind of chips away at these things that we can all do, these little things, these little whether it's outreach or whether it's donations or whatever you can do, but just things just like as you do.
But part of that would be acknowledging the harm, right? The
Right,
harm
yes.
that
Oh,
we're
yes.
talking about, right? So
And that's what I said, but I think that there's so much emphasis put on this that, oh, white people were, obviously, with slavery and things like that, like it was, the people of that time.
when you
their
hear
fault.
that, do you hear you are bad?
I
Yeah.
do not.
I do.
I don't.
You
but
do.
I
And
can see how you can feel that way.
There was literally like a moment on this podcast, well, not on this one exactly, but there was literally a moment where I remember coming on to argue something, and some lady screamed at me, Kay Swiftly, I think that was who she was. She was like, I don't need to listen to you, you white piece of shit. And then in a meme back, I was like, all right, I'm not going to listen to you, black piece of shit. And as soon as I said that, it was like, whoa. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like, yeah, unironically, that exact discourse has happened literally right in front of you before. Yeah.
Oh God. Oh boy. We'll get back to that soon, I'm sure. Oh man, I knew that movie.
Not get back to it. That's relevant to the topic. I'm
No,
just
no,
saying,
no,
like,
no,
people
no,
that
no.
literally attacked for shit like that is crazy.
Steven. Rose has been wanting to talk. He's been wanting to
All right.
address you and Dylan, but
Oh,
you
yeah,
keep
go for it,
walking
fine.
away.
Destiny, you better not fucking walk away this time. Okay. So, something to add to the Destiny and Dylan going back and forth with the specific like exchange of the, oh, well, what if you switch out the races? Would you be comfortable with doing it then? I think that I can add something important to this in terms of a European perspective, and maybe Destiny may have more of a European perspective on race than that Dylan does, and that can create like a bit of a discrepancy. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you look from an exclusively like black perspective of the, you know, like different racial groups, black racial group and white racial group, the black population in the US, particularly the African American population, right, have a lot more of a joint origin within that country and throughout their history in that country, while the white, you know, population groups in the US has a lot more of like a broad and a lot more of like a decentralized movement. So sort of like pride or like critiquing or like talking about specific aspects or elements of whiteness is going to be a lot more broad and a lot more sort of fluffy than, you know, conversations about the same in regards to like a black identity group. While here in Europe, for instance, both of those groups are really, really, really broad, right? A lot more broad than in the US, for example. So while in the US you have, okay, the black perspective, the black narrative, which is a lot more narrow, and the white population group and their history, which is a lot more broad. In Europe, they're both like pretty broad. So therefore, like the comment, okay, well, would you be, you know, more comfortable, or would you be as comfortable switching in another racial group in that specific analogy? Seems to be more like intuitive in that specific example compared to, you know, from a European perspective more than from a US perspective. So maybe that could have something to do there and influence there. But
Do you want to respond to that, Dylan, and then Steven, who's next on which way?
I didn't feel any of it was directed towards me. Could you repeat the part that was directly towards me? Like,
it wasn't
simplify
like
I just didn't
anything that was
understand it.
directed. Oh, it
Okay,
was just
got it.
basically like the differences in perspective and how they might have influenced.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, Steven, so you brought up that moment. That was on A for Andres, A for Auditorium. And I think that moment ended the A for Auditorium, unfortunately.
Wait, really? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it was a big thing. Yeah, that a lot of things happened after that moment that you're referring to. So you're saying that the harm that you felt, right? Like when those words were said to you, right, calling you a piece of shit, specifically a white piece of shit, right? Are you saying that the harm there is generally minimized, right? Like whatever your feelings were, everyone reacts to you responding to her rather than her.
I'm not talking about my feelings or anything. I'm a fucking robot. I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying that it's racist, and that's just kind of weird to me that I go into a panel, somebody be openly racist towards me, and if I was even a little racist towards them, I think I would get fucking destroyed.
Okay.
I mean, I could add like another anecdote to that as well. Like, for example, I did like a rebuttal to a black conservative in regards to them saying like systemic racism isn't real, and the talking points were garbage. It was like, okay, well, more more white people are killed like in absolute numbers from police than what black people are. So can you really see like dumb, like really stupid arguments like that? I made a video on that. I made a response. I put it up, and I'm getting comments from like progressives and like left-leaning people being like, yeah, I might agree with some of the things you have to say, but is it really your place as a white person to talk about these things at all and stuff like that? And that's an anecdote, sure, and we've shared a bit of anecdotes here, but you know, while we're on the topic, I just threw this one out there as well.
Okay. All right.
I just want to be really clear that most of the pushback I get isn't from people of color, isn't from minorities. The people who call me names and stuff for being white are other white people. It's amazing to me. It's all I don't know.
No. Yeah.
If you have a room full of people that are gonna talk to you about like how horrible and shit racism is, more often than not, you're gonna need a pair of sunglasses because it is gonna be blindingly fucking white.
Blindingly white.
Okay, blindingly fucking white.
So okay. In fact, it's interesting putting this together. It was white individuals who were the most reticent to have this happen. We saw this live on air. We saw this in my DMs. We saw this on other people's channels. That it was white people who had the most issue with this. Which
they think they're Daenerys from Game of Thrones, like freeing all the black people from Essos.
The white savior trope.
Literal fucking unironically
strong.
I will say from personal experience, because I'd never seen this before. When I started to do more like on the ground, like local political work in my city, I had never been exposed to this before. But some of the people that were pushing back to me, I'm sorry if it sounds like a stereotype, but I had never actually had firsthand experience with the self-hating like white woman who is obsessed with black everything. Like there were these two women that were like trying to destroy like our campaigning shit. And I remember going through their Facebook stuff because everybody communicate, or at least in these areas, they communicated locally with Facebook. And it was every single thing posted for months was like, this black person got arrested, this black person got shot, this is this black celebration day, this person, justice for this, justice. It was like every single thing. Not that it's not good to be like aware of black issues or whatever, but I didn't realize that trope of like, and the thing that they talked about for like the local candidates, like, we don't need another white mayor, it's time for white people to step down, it can only be like a black woman. And I was like, oh my God, this is like so fucking crazy. Like I had never gotten firsthand experience with that trope until I had like gotten like more into the weeds in that scene, and that was insane to me. Whoa.
So, okay, there.
Yeah,
God,
I got like
that's
20
like another
points,
thing that I want. Yeah, there's like I know there's like 20, 30 things that keep getting brought up. But like, fuck. We're never gonna have
Prime,
time
I
to
can
cover
answer
everything
real
that I want to
easily.
talk about. But like, no. Hold on. I got to get other people in. But it's like I'm curious as this is part of what whiteness is the relation to other races, right? And like so that like in these conversations where we're talking about race, right? White people obviously have a place here, but in some spaces, their voices are rejected. Now, I think that can be for very good reasons. For instance, like during the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Like the idea to elevate Black voices in that moment, right? Yes. If there was something with my Asian brothers and sisters, right? Something they were trying to do. In fact, right now, they're being attacked, being maligned for COVID stupidity, right? And they at this point right now, like I wouldn't go to a meeting about that and say, okay, well, here, my Asian brothers and sisters, here's how we will liberate you. You know, I wouldn't do that. I'd listen to their stories, their experiences, and put that up front. But still, is there a place for white people to be involved in these conversations? And when they aren't involved, in fact, this is our second topic. This is our second topic, so I'm just going to read it out. So yeah, the second topic here. Assuming I can get it up on my screen. Oh fuck! I got so many goddamn DMs. The second topic
are they all calling you a racist for platforming white people?
Some of them actually, yes. Is there value in having all white spaces, or do they inherently breed problems? That was the second topic, and we're literally just it came in just in time. But part of that, right, is can white people discuss race, right, and bring value to it, like by themselves, without parroting Black voices? So when I announced that we were doing this, we had a long discussion, hours-long discussion as to whether this should even happen. And someone said, I forget who, but said like, without Black voices there, or voices of other minorities, that what you could get out of this is very limited. I find that extremely interesting.
Wait, without Black voices, what you can get out of this is extremely limiting?
Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
Can I?
Who said that? Drop some names.
I honestly, I don't remember. I'm not trying to study.
I do. I remember exactly who it was.
Don't
Who said it?
Hey,
Was it Gambit? Was it Fnatic? Which one? Who?
No, it wasn't them.
It was one of
No,
those
it
two
wasn't.
troublemakers. I know it
I'll
was.
DM you. I'll DM you directly.
All right, so can I? I was kind of.
Almost. I swear to God. I swear. I'm almost done. And I want you all to jump in. I want to hear from you. Okay. And is she okay? All right. So one of the reasons why I want to bring up this particular question, is because I think it was the Ferguson moment, right? The Ferguson, Missouri. I forget which. Michael Brown died in Ferguson, I believe, right?
Yes.
So many of my brothers have died. It's hard to tell which one is which, right? But so, and I believe this is where I remember this from. But in Missouri, right? There was a story about this all-white space to talk about race. There was an article or something about this. My first reaction upon hearing this is like, what the fuck is this racist shit? What is going on there, right? There must be a problem if these people are talking about things. I read the article, and it talked about how, well, white people, like, they may want to talk about race, but they may feel uncomfortable, may feel that that their contributions aren't wanted, or that they're going to say something terrible, not meaning to say something terrible, it's going to be shut down. And so even if they do talk about these things in a mixed environment, they're not actually going to tell their real opinions. And so I thought, okay, I mean, I guess that's fair, right? Like, you might want a space less that the white people are being impressed in these other spaces, more that their voices aren't valued, and they're just honestly afraid. Like, well, meaning people honestly afraid of making a mistake. And so now that I proposed this, right, I saw that backlash again, right? And again, it was specifically from white people that I got most of this from. And it was weird. It was like white people knew something that I didn't. Right?
Because those are the type of white people are fucking cringe. That's our culture. Our culture is fucking cringe on other levels. Although I will say, black people have assimilated well. They're doing the anime cringe shit on YouTube and shit. That used to be only white people. So congratulations to that cultural assimilation.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, anyway, Counterpoints.
Yeah, so just to address the question head on, is there value to white only spaces? Basically, and to extend the question, having conversations about race, I think there is, especially if those people, some of those people are educated on that conversation. I think that a lot of the time, a lot of these conversations can be boiled down to shame or ignorance, and nobody likes feeling like a stupid idiot in public. And communication can often come from a similar experience. So basically, I'm not going to pretend that I have like the same experience as every other fucking white guy. But if somebody was like, "Hey, did you hear about 1350?" Then I could be like, "Hold up, I've been on the internet for 3 fucking years. Let me break this shit down for you." And then I can go through, kind of from like an educative standpoint, without that person feeling like they've created a fucking social faux pas, having their name attached to it. Actually, a lot of I don't want to say part of the problem with internet communication is the anonymity, and like, I'm not trying to eliminate this. I'm just trying to say that this is part of the problem with communication. Is the anonymity allows you to say whatever the fuck you want without consequence, so you just become a fucking asshole. Well, if you shifted your perspective to basically asking or acting the same way online as you do in real life, 1, you lose like a shit ton of the douchebaggery. And then 2, you can have honest conversations because you basically know that you're going to be held accountable because your name and your persona and the people around you are going to hold you accountable. So yeah, I think it can be positive. I'm sure it could also be incredibly toxic. But honestly, like, even this panel, I think, has more productivity from like a, whatever you want to call it, like white relational perspective. Because when we bring up an issue, like, so for instance, like Wick brought up like, hey, white people have fucking problems, and sometimes they're not addressed because nobody takes it seriously. Typically, when you're on a Twitch panel on fucking in lefty spaces, it's shut the fuck up. You don't have problems compared to other people. That's almost completely the reaction. So I'll leave it there.
So I do want to bring up the fact quickly that I think there is a usefulness in the fact that white people speak to white people about race very differently than how white people speak to black people about race. And if you're a white person and you're denying this, you're fucking lying. You see how they'll fucking look over the shoulder before they're about to say something that's an interesting opinion about race. They're looking around. They'll go like, he's black, or like lower the voice like that. All the like little like vocal things, you all know 100% what it is. And the thing is, if those individuals who have those questions are going to say those things are not going to say those in certain environments, and I think it could be useful to have them say those things to other white people, and then those white people explain to them, well, here's why I think you're wrong, or why that's not a correct analysis, or like that. And that is a usefulness that could come out of the situation. So, I mean, there are, I think, certain scenarios where all like those, but it's specifically to like talk about the concept of whiteness and like self-reflection and like answer those types of questions. As if we're talking like all white college dorms or stuff like that, nah, that sounds stupid.
Probably not.
It's like family, right? To Dylan's point, and then we'll go to Wordy, Rose, and Lick, and Biggs. Okay. But like, it's like dealing with family, right? That family will say things to you that they won't say otherwise, right? When they perceive a quote unquote outsider. And so I think in these spaces that these things will come out, right? When they may not come out otherwise, even though people still may be thinking of it. But do you agree with that, Dylan?
Well, yeah, of course. They'll say different things around family. If they have more trust in you, and I guess there is an implicit kind of like, we both understand what we're talking about when like there's a white person because you trust you can say it to them because you won't think they'll get offended, and they're like worried that like if you say this thing to a black person, you might get they might get
Jesus
offended.
Christ! What kind of white things are you saying to your white friends? Like, what the fuck?
But
All of
No,
the
that shit
things,
does
dude.
happen.
Destiny,
That
that
shit
happens
happens.
all
Oh my
the time.
God.
That happens all the time. There's
Dude,
white people
you
who
should
100%.
see our DMs. You should see 'em.
100%. This happens all the time. That if you're with like some family member and they have some, and there's like you see some like thing about George Floyd on the news, and you're just sitting there like, you're just sitting there, and they're gonna look to the right, they look to the left, and you'll be like, oh shit, what's about to happen? And they're gonna say something, and you're gonna lean back in your chair like, I can't believe they just said that. Confronting those in those spaces is not only I think important, but also like it makes it a lot easier, I would think, for like black people who probably don't want to go through that shit.
So
Yeah, so like I have like a boomer MAGA supporting grandma, and what it comes down to is like we were watching a movie one time, and a woman appeared on the stage, and she was tall, she was like broad shoulders a little bit, and they're like, that ain't a woman, that's one of them transgenders, and you can quote me on that. That's what she said. And so
They said transgenders. That's actually significantly improved from what I would have imagined they said. So
true, it is significantly improved, but it, like the whole like she's identifying that they're fucking trans just because she's a little taller or some shit.
Sure.
And what it comes down to is like I think we can break down maybe the idea that we need like exclusively these areas, but maybe instead like creating spaces within those areas, specifically where we have time and places to emphasize which people are talking and such. So like, for example, like you got like a space full of all sorts of different races of people, and then you say, hey, like, we're gonna have time for like black people here, time for black people, white people here to talk specifically in those groups. But I don't think we need to necessarily have exclusive like spaces itself, because I feel like that's incredibly toxic, both sides of the aisle. Like if you have only just black spaces or if you have just white spaces, you need to have people with broad range of experiences interacting and communicating to each other. This way we can actually have a recognition of what everybody's dealing with together. And that's what I want to touch on, Wick, is I was not saying, nobody here has said that white people don't face adversity, but specifically white people don't face adversity because they're white. Like all the adversity they deal with are things that can be contributed to other things, right? When you talk about a black person, they deal with those things too, but specifically the dimension of being black also highlights the issues that work within it. So that's what I just want to say.
Well, Rose, and then we'll go to Wick, and then Biggs.
Yeah, on the topic of like all one demographic spaces, I would say that generally, I would say the segregated spaces are not beneficial. So two like key reasons for this generally being the case is because you might have a lack of multiple perspectives. Now, just because you might have a more diverse space does not necessarily mean you will get more perspectives, but the likelihood is increased. We can see this demonstrated in classrooms actually, where more diverse classrooms tend to perform better on a lot of creative tasks than less diverse classrooms. In addition to that, depending on the size of the all white or the all one demographic space or whatever, it could increase the likelihood of xenophobia being developed, as lack of content increases xenophobia and increased contact tends to decrease xenophobia, typically towards other groups. Now, there are some situations in which it could be beneficial and some which not. I can give one example where it's not. That's what Dylan said before, like all white dorms. Probably not a fucking good idea. And an example where it could be good is like a specialized sort of like not like a lecture, but like a space where white individuals may be able to discuss race issues on the basis of a lot of the things that Dylan said. And another space where this could be necessary is on Twitter, because it's fucking Twitter. And yeah.
Do you think an all black spaces discuss race would increase, well, or all black space anyway, in general, would increase xenophobia?
I think it depends on what type of space it is, just like it depends on what type of space the all white one was.
Okay.
So, for example, I would be like against like all black restaurants or like all black dorms or stuff like that. I don't think those would be good ideas, but
all black
hey,
dorms,
like,
really?
Yeah, I don't think
that's interesting. That's an interesting one, because all black dorms are something that some people have fought for.
What about HBCUs? Should white people be allowed to go to those?
Like historically black
historically
colleges?
black colleges, because he's European, but
Oh,
historically
sorry.
black colleges, where there's like majority black. I'm not sure white people can't go to those. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but
I
then
think that white people can technically, because I think it's illegal to discriminate, but when they do, there's usually like a big thing stirred up about it. I feel like I remember there was like a story a couple years ago where a white guy wanted to go to an HBCU. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like that was a big story that everybody was talking about. We haven't talked about this in a while, but
Well, do you think it should be colleges that were directed that were historically all black, and maybe should they continue to be all black? What do you think?
no, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
No.
Why not?
Because typically when it comes to something that is as large and as instrumental in an individual's like day-to-day life, such as a school, the reduced likelihood of multiple perspectives coupled with just like the massive removal of the potential contact towards other types of groups in society, both can have like negative effects when it comes to the development of xenophobia, for instance.
Would you say the same thing? And because I really want to break this down,
Go
would
for
you
it.
say the same thing about having an all women's school, right? So something like they're all women's
Yeah,
college.
absolutely, 100%. I think like all like gender segregated schools are fucking terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
But even when and this is why I'm trying to bring this up. So my understanding of
Mhm.
why single-gendered schools are perceived to have some value is that because for women, like being in mixed gender classes, sometimes they perform less well because society is telling them to take a back seat to boys when they're performing, right? Or maybe they'll get signals from teachers, right? Like in math class that they don't that they don't know what they're doing, that they shouldn't be as confident as they should be,
Mhm.
believing in their own skills.
That's a good
and
point,
Yeah, so
Prime.
wait, can I respond
I
to
would
this,
love.
Prime?
Wait. That is a great point, Prime. I would love to go to an all-boys school. That's a great idea.
I've got a question. So are you against like LGBTQ like sororities and stuff like that, where there's these spaces
I can write this down as
specifically
well.
for same?
So to answer Prime's one first, I don't think the solution to the issues that you described, which are very real problems, is to have gender segregated schools. I think the solution to that is to really like aggressively try to target those negative behaviors and repair those. Because if we look at a lot of the outcomes of gender segregated school, at least from the literature I've seen, there tends to be very negative like outcomes in these people's ability to socialize with people in the other gender following that, and just developments of certain like beliefs or stereotypes or characterizations of the other gender that may not be beneficial. And these things seem far harder to reform out of a gender segregated school than the things that you described are to get rid of those from a gender integrated school. Now on to what you said, Amanda. I'm European. I have no idea what the fuck a sorority is.
So sororities and fraternities are basically like in college settings. They're like basically like big groups where like they're like, yeah, we're part of this group. It's like the Omega Alpha.
It's a club.
Shit.
It's a
Yeah.
You
I
describe
think
it like the worst way. It's a club. It's a club, right? It's a social club.
I hate them. Okay.
Okay, yeah, it's a social club that we have within the context of colleges, universities, that you can join in. You can pay dues, and they're supposed to give you all kinds of benefits, like camaraderie, but also like connections and
It's
stuff
networking,
like that.
100%
Networking,
Yeah.
and actually has interesting racial roots if you actually explore that. But
To answer her thing there, I would say that because I have no idea like what role these groups play in like an individual student's life. I can't say. If I was more informed on these groups and like how big of a part they were and what they did, yada yada, I could give like a more informed opinion. But it's hard for me to say right now because I'm completely unfamiliar with them.
So going back to HBCUs just for 1 second, and then I'm done. I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say. The HBCUs, right? Well, part of the reasons why they had those because Black people, qualified individuals, could not get into other schools, right? They face discrimination, and so you have the HBCUs. Considering that history, right? And in fact, there was a story. I'm going to get the details wrong. People are going to yell at me later on about this. But there was a school that apologized to African American applicant, right? And this is a prominent school. I forget which one it is, but they wrote an apology letter because he was specifically excluded, specifically because he was Black, right? He went on to have a successful career everywhere. He was either a doctor or a lawyer, or whatever. But he went on to have a successful career, and he may have gone to HBCU. But the point is that he just an example of someone being excluded, right? And so finding opportunities in HBCUs was very important. So why should that disappear?
It's not that it should disappear.
I want
Sorry.
Rose. I want to push him on this one. Rose, why should we no longer have those anymore?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were speaking to somebody else. I was reading some chat.
Rose.
I apologize.
Rose, why shouldn't we have HBCUs? Because they were places where historically where Black people could get an education where they couldn't in other universities, even though they were otherwise qualified.
I think that you could probably like expand the role of those institutes. They sound pretty good, so if you could probably like expand them and group up more just like disadvantaged people from all like walks of society, from all identity groups, it could probably be even more beneficial.
Everything but white people.
Sorry, no, like all disadvantaged groups, right? All like different groups of individuals who, yeah, so like poor white people, for instance, who might not have an opportunity to go to college.
Everyone but rich individuals. But you're asking for a state school, like a
yeah, just like if the institution is as you describe it, I'm not familiar with it either. Then yeah, if it's an institution that historically has assisted like disadvantaged Black Americans towards getting into education, then yeah, this seems like a positive thing. You should probably just expand it and include more people.
Okay, I think there's much more to this, but like I want to let people to get in. Taking long enough on this one, but thank you for that. So let's go to Wick, Biggs, Connor. You got your hand up. And does anyone else have their hand up?
I did, but quickly, did everyone give their opening statement already?
We kind of just rolled on.
We just kind of rolled on.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect.
Yeah, it's okay. So just real quick, to answer the initial question, then I'll address more kind of an important topic I think that Rose Risk brought up, because I think my thinking on this kind of leans more towards theirs. There is a limited value in segregated spaces. There is, however, value in it. And when we talk about having an all Black space or an all Latin space or an all female space, there's things that can be derived as benefits from it. However, we have to understand that there are also dangers as well. So that's the same thing in a white space. White people are not like going to be any different in this case. There are and I think the response to the all white panel, all white everything, is clear indication of why we kind of need a space like, well, need's not the right word, but why there is value in a space like this, because this is something which we can destigmatize, talking about a lot of topics where we can be free to address certain issues and not get shut down just automatically. And I think that there's value there. There is dangers as well. I don't think it's inherently wrong to be skeptical, but it would be the same in an all Black everything space or an all women everything space. I think those same dangers exist. Now, to when it comes to the values of segregated areas such as dorms and things like that, I think that there is a value there, but I think the dangers outweigh it. And when it comes to, as Rose Risk said, the amount, or the gravity, the amount, the role it plays in your life, the amount of the role it plays in your life. And so, unless I'm mischaracterizing him, the objection to an all boys school or an all girls school is that it severely limits your interaction with other people. And we understand through contact theory that the more interaction you have with diverse groups, the less likely you are to develop inherent biases towards those groups. You're more likely to be understanding of those different types of people. And so to segregate ourselves away denies us this opportunity. And I think that that's going to lead to bad outcomes overall.
Thank you so much. All right, let's go to Biggs, Connor, Amanda, Wordy.
Yeah, so I think that that Rose and Wick both kind of hit it right on the head. I think that there is some value to be had just by having like spaces where people can kind of talk just like, bluntly with each other, not have to worry about, necessarily what they're being said personally or what may happen outside of that group of people. And then there should be also people within that group that they're discussing with that can call people out on their their problems or their biases or whatever, whatever you're talking about, whether it's race, whether it's financial, whatever the topic is at hand. But I do think that when we get into more public spaces, I think that we want more diversity. We want more of a culmination of like ideas from as many places as possible, because I think that diversity breeds in innovation and breeds conversation that can lead to more better outcomes and lead to more thinking outside the box, because if you have individual groups that have their own needs and stuff like that, they might not be as like able to see these possible solutions that we could have based on what other perspectives might bring to the table. So I think that there can be kind of both sides, but I do think overall what I try to strive for is making things as open as possible. And but I do think that if somebody has isn't comfortable with certain spaces, I think that they should be with 100% within their rights to want to be in a more comfortable space for them. But I do think that the goal of that should be to get those people to be outside of those spaces as much as possible as well. So I think it's kind of like a, kind of maybe like a stepping stone. So like say, hey, if you have some ideas you want to share, maybe share them in this this forum first. Then you can take them out into the larger world and the larger, more diverse sect.
I do want to interject because I forgot to make this point, but this is probably the most important point of the most important benefit of having an all-white space is that certain people, especially in my family and especially people I've met in the military and other groups, they will not listen to what you say, PrimeCayes, because of your race. They do not believe you. They think you're just making it up. However, they will listen when I say it. So when I am in a space where it's just white people and they spout off nonsense, I can correct them and be believed. Whereas if there was someone of color in that space, they would say, oh, you're just virtue signaling. You're just pandering. But when I am in a space with all white people, I can say, I can push back on conspiracy theories. I can push back on harmful narratives, and they will believe me. And it's
Wait.
not ideal, but this is what happens.
Wait, can I ask you one question?
Of
Do you
course.
think there's value if somebody's showing to be racist and calling them a piece of shit for being racist? Do you think there's some value in that sometimes?
No, not generally.
Why would I call them a piece of shit? Why wouldn't I just correct them? Why wouldn't I just try to persuade them? Because what do we want? Do we want to feel good by calling it like, yeah, I gave it to that racist, I got him, or do we want to actually help change people's minds to make them less racist?
It also depends on what they're giving you and what you give back. There's definitely a balancing act there too.
And the
Yeah,
nature
like,
of
if
the
a white
person, if it's
nationalist
public or
was
private as well,
peddling
right? That's
some
what's
shit,
important.
and then you're like, yes, I'm gonna be very kind to them. I'm gonna say, hey, bud, I understand you believe the white race is being like eroded, but then I'm gonna come in and just say, hey, bud, that's not what's happening. And then they keep espousing that whole 1% drop bullshit. Like,
Here's
I feel
the problem. Again, it's like in one area we'll say things obviously, but then in another area we apply a totally different standard, right? Would you ever look at like black people that sell drugs and commit crime and be like, you guys just need to change your shit, you're fucked? No, you would have a whole host of reasons for why people act the way that they do. Or if we look at obese people, right? Should we bully the fuck out of obese people until they just put down the fork? No, we know that doesn't work. We know this doesn't work in any area. Do we beat our children? No, we know that doesn't work in any area. But when it comes to people that have like ideologies we disagree with, oh, well, they're racist, we'll just bully the fuck out of them and then eventually they'll change their mind. Why would we expect it to work with that when it doesn't work with anything else? Now, if you want to be mean to people because you think it's funny, I'm mean to a lot of people because I think it's funny. That's fine. But I'm not going to sit there and say that I do it because I know I'm changing minds. Sometimes I do it just because I want to be an asshole. If you want to be mean to somebody that's racist because you want to be an asshole, that's fine. But don't delude yourself into thinking you're like accomplishing something positive with it other than your own personal enjoyment.
There's two different, wait, just to be clear though, there's two different scenarios. Like, if you're in front of like a crowd of people and they're advocating for like racist like ideology and racist implementation, then yeah, you being like pretty blood sporty and like dropping elbows or whatever, I think is morally permissible because the point there isn't to convince them. The point there is to convince the audience. Whereas if you're in like a living room and you got like your 80-year-old grandma who uses an outdated term, right, to refer to Asian people or something, the conversation there shouldn't be, Grandma, you didn't ground your fucking axioms. Like, that's not gonna work. Right? You gotta the conversation and the type of environment you're gonna foster is totally different if you want to actually like make a difference.
Yeah, and obviously context matters in this. If someone I am with is if I'm in a company and one of my friends comes in who happens to be homosexual and my other friend starts giving them shit for it, that's a different story than if we're just talking and someone mentions like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with trans individuals in sports. I shouldn't say, well, you're a piece of shit if you believe that. That's no one's gonna. That's not gonna change minds. It's not gonna. It doesn't work, as Destiny said. It doesn't work. So what do we want to be here? Do we want to be performative or do we want to be effective?
But
I understand that we can do both in different circumstances, but by and large, kindness works. It just does.
Also, it is very
Okay,
important
let's
to
go to
mention
Connor.
here. Oh, can I just?
Oh, thank
It's a
God.
small
All
thing,
right,
tiny
so,
comment. Okay.
not that I didn't enjoy that. Just
Wait, am I muted?
just I think there's some shit that's been in the back of my head for a bit.
Muted.
So, I think that I'm going to bring it back all the way to reciprocity. I think reciprocity is incredibly important, and I think that we have to deal with the demographic changes that are
I was
happening inside the
fucking
United
muted,
States
chat.
of America.
This is so sad.
I think by 2050, I think white people
Fuck.
are going to be a minority, if I remember correctly. And at that point, I joke about that being a day that I'm going to actively celebrate, because I'm just going to start fucking complaining about everything. I'm just going to be like, as a minority this, as a minority that, and I'm just going to fucking bitch about all of my fucking problems, and it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to enjoy it. But what's going on though is that, like, you have to understand what's good for the goose is good for the gander in a liberal democratic society. So if you have historically black colleges and universities or whatever, there's going to be some fucking ethno-nats. There's going to be some fucking groypers that are going to try to start a fucking historically white college or university. And when they say, hey, that's fucking racist, then they're going to be like, well, they've been doing it for fucking 200 years. So what? Why the fuck can't I? And you're going to have to come up with better arguments than, like, history. You have to come up with some legal reason about why it's bad, or culturally pressure them, or anything like that. And by the way, this is all coming down the pipeline. Also, something that I wanted to just kind of share, completely devoid and separate from everything else. I think that one of the most interesting things about studying West African history was actually learning how much there was. And Prime, I understand that you kind of said earlier that, like, basically, like, a lot of Black Americans, including yourself, feel completely divorced because that entire part of your history was obliterated. Well, the truth is that history is still partially there. So if you're talking about, like, the kingdoms of Benin, the kingdoms of Mali, the kingdoms basically, like, basically like the Bantu migration into South Africa, like all that kind of stuff, there's a whole bunch of interesting cultural artifacts from the past, like 2,000 to 3,000 years that are worth exploring. And so I would just invite anybody who was, probably of West African descent to explore those roots.
Yeah, I mean, but like, sure. I think it's worthwhile to do that, and I would actually suggest you to look into that. But it's different from being able to point to this area and say, my grandpa or whatever, right, was from here. That grew up here, had these customs and cultures, and there's something I want to tap into, right? You can, like, do the old genetic test, but those can only give you, like, percentages. Like, you are most likely to have been from here and here and here, right? And what does that even mean at that point, where you've been separated from, like, by generations, right? And people mixed all together, right? Like, again, your background becomes some sort of, like, just this fog, like this fog of Africanness, right? And so, again, I think it's what you're talking about is worth doing to learn about, like, the accomplishments of Africans, because those accomplishments have been completely erased, ignored. They tell us that we have built nothing. That's exactly what they'll tell us. So it's worth learning otherwise, but it's not the same as saying I had pride in being British or French, right? Look at all the things that the French people have done and added to the world's culture. Right.
I wouldn't mind having, like, a longer conversation, but I don't want to detract from this one. So if you want to have a nerdy history conversation another day, I would love to.
To be clear, real quick, I don't think Prime's not saying that the history is gone. He's just saying that for people that were brought over as slaves, you don't know. You don't have, like, an Ellis Island. You don't have, like, a book you can read. Like, oh, this is where my grandfather. That's what he's saying. You don't know exactly where you come from. That's why there's, like, the quote unquote African American demographic, because it literally means you were brought over as a slave, and who the fuck knows, where you're
sure. And my only contention, I'll just do it really quickly. My only contention would basically be that there's, like, 4 major linguistic groups in, like, Africa, with Bantu being, like, the major linguistic group in, like, West and South Africa. There's also, like, the Khoisan in South Africa, and, like, these, there is a continuous culture with this language group all the way from Mali in West Africa all the way into South Africa. There are things that these people hold in common. So studying what these people hold in common, while it's not going to be a perfect, like you saying fog, actually, like, that kind of drew it home for me, where it's like, well, I could have been from fucking Mali, or I could have been from fucking South Africa, and I just don't know. I understand that perspective of it, but there's still some things that those people share in common that I think is worth studying, and that's really my only contention.
No, fair enough. Yeah. Let's go to Amanda, Wordy, Rose. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think spaces can be toxic depending on individuals and the power that they yield. I think that this conversation is missing a lot. Like, people are acting as if everyone in these safe spaces are only in these safe spaces and they don't interact with people outside of the safe spaces. And that not all, but a lot of safe spaces actually do include allies. So I don't know. Those are just my points that I'd like to hit.
Okay, so we'll go to Woody and Rose. I do want to draw this conversation as to why these spaces, all white spaces, can be problematic, right? And what characteristics will end up giving it that. It's a little bit it's a little bit problematic because the people who might have a certain insight into this are the ones who wouldn't want to be part of this group, right? Who decide, like, I don't want to be a part of whatever you're doing here, Prime. So, like, the people here are the ones who think that white spaces have some sort of utility to begin with. So we're going to be limited there, but I still want to try to explore this topic. Wordy and then Rose.
Yeah, so just for a bit of a meme, it's good to see Wick advocating for segregation. I'm sorry. That it's a meme. It's like segregating spaces. No,
did you
it's
not
fine.
hear my point? Where
Yes,
I
I heard your entire point. I just wanted to meme on you. It's fine. So what it comes down to is I don't think we should really segregate any space. I think we're in a world nowadays where interactions, and you can maybe have some emphasis on certain conversations at certain points, but you shouldn't really exclude anybody from those conversations in those areas. You should like actively push against people who are actively like espousing some rhetoric that is like pretty shit and dog shit. Like if you hear some people are espousing some pretty racist shit, you should actively push against that. Like, I think in a way the conversation needs to be about like, how do we emphasize these conversations more than like specifically segregating spaces for these conversations. It's the emphasis and like how we should bring that about more than like specifically excluding or like specifically saying this is for these groups of people to have those conversations.
Let's go to Rose and Stephen.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about something previous back, and I can put that on hold for the minute. In regards to what you said about the spaces and segregating spaces, I agree with you that generally I don't think that it's a good thing depending on the scale of the thing. But I do think that there are definitely some like situations in which it could be beneficial. So for instance, let's say that you live in a, like really conservative, really regressive town down somewhere in the south, right? And there is a lot of there's a heavy discrimination against, for instance, like LGBT people. Now in that situation, do you think it would be beneficial to maybe have like a small sort of LGBT exclusive group that's not like your entire school, that's not your entire like housing district, but where people can come and just hang out with other LGBT people and feel like, hey, we're in a space right now where we can be open, we can be ourselves, we don't have to worry about like attacks coming from, like the people we're hanging out right now, and we can just, like discuss these things and just, chill out as opposed to being in an environment that is generally hostile towards us.
I would say that it's not that creating like just a queer only space, because I think what we need to do specifically is in a way like having more people who would be conservative traditionally, having those people who would come in and see these people just like existing as people, and like having that interaction is good. Like if you like the biggest group of the people who are going to be opposed to like our existence are conservatives generally, and specifically excluding like conservatives in some way I think is in a negative way, because like there are like conservatives who are like not realizing that they're queer, and they're only like they're just thinking that these are terrible people, and in a way they're internalizing like I hate them because in a way I hate myself. But if we open up those spaces in a way to allow more people to interact, we can like actively make change and progress, at least on those small areas where we can extend into broader areas.
Yeah, I have stuff to say on this, but I'll hand it over to Steven.
Is anyone here part of a safe space? Like,
yeah, so what I was going to say is that like we have to recognize there's a value to having a safe space, right? So the idea of a safe space isn't like you create like a whole fucking world where you're excluding like white people or men or black people. The point of a safe space is that, well, just sometimes, depending on the type of group that you're in, you might be under like some kind of constant, maybe almost performative pressure throughout the entirety of your life. And sometimes it's nice to have like a certain space where you can take a break from that without worrying about being judged by whatever group you feel that pressure from. So so like a very obvious example is a safe space for like therapy, right? So people that might have a certain type of mental condition, ADHD or OCD or borderline or whatever, you have a space we can talk to people and share these experiences. You don't have to worry about being judged. You might have a similar thing with like an Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe, regardless of how you feel about the program. You might have a similar thing for maybe like Muslim people in a like super white Christian majority community, or maybe for women in a certain space, right? The idea is just that like you have these spaces where maybe you can like air or vent some grievances, and you don't have to worry about that majority group that you're normally worried about, like constantly judging you or feel like you're being judged for that. There's absolutely value in those spaces. There's no harm in excluding some people from those spaces. Nobody's talking about, or I don't think, nobody's talking about making like a safe space college. It's just like an area where you have like some form of ability to like vent about things that normally you wouldn't be able to without being judged.
And to add to that, just because we do that doesn't mean that we can't also do what you're talking about, Wordy, and have other like specialized events or whatever towards improving like communication between different groups in society. These are by no means exclusionary. You can do both without any issue.
Couldn't you just
And
say?
that's kind of what.
Sorry, you go.
That's kind of why I asked if anyone was actually in safe spaces, because the few that I'm in, like, we actively, obviously we air grievances, but we actively try to like spread information and have events and invite people like allies and stuff to these events. So
Stephen, in terms of these, so you were talking about like create these spaces for people to get away from the majority, right? Well, then if white people are the majority, right, and you're defining it by your whiteness, then do they need these spaces at all?
Well, I'm speaking generally. Usually it's the majority. It might not be the majority. It might be like having like a male or female segregated like locker room or gym, right? Where you want to be able to get undressed and not feel like you're being judged or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be the majority. It's just usually that's how it works.
Or an invite-only Discord.
Go ahead, Dylan.
So I mean, for me, like, I never really had one of those like growing up. I remember like there was a particular experience that like drilled into my head where I had to go to therapy when I was younger, right? And I remember there was this instance where I was trying to open up about like certain like sexual abuse I suffered, and the therapist in question decided it was a good idea to bring in a student, a therapy like a psych student or something, to kind of like sit in on that conversation. Made me super uncomfortable. I didn't want to talk about it. It was over. And I felt like, and I do think that if it was actually like maybe a bunch of people who had that similar experience, I would have felt a lot more open, like opening up. And when it comes to like LGBTQ plus like safe spaces, like obviously there's a lot of places in this country where half the population still thinks it's wrong to be gay. And so having those like locations where you can be yourself, be open, discuss issues, communicate, build ties, help each other is super important, and it has been a lifeline for like queer people forever. Now, I do actually think there could be scenarios where like a white only safe space could exist, but it wouldn't be for the same reasons that like queer spaces exists. For example, it wouldn't be like we're here because we want to make sure that we don't get racially abused, or it would be mostly, I think, like spaces of like reflection to maybe like discuss like maybe like I don't know like the stuff we're talking about right here. Like what we're doing right now would be exactly what I would assume those spaces would be for, to reflect on like what exactly is whiteness and the issues we're talking about right now.
Okay, we'll go to Wick and Connor.
So safe spaces in general are a good thing. I think they serve a purpose and a value. The problem comes when your safe space becomes your only space. When it becomes the only space you interact with, and then you start to exclude yourself from society in general. I think it creates this this feedback loop where it's harmful. You have to face some kind of pressures, and if you exclude yourself from society and only deal with your safe space group, I think it makes you more. I don't want to say weaker, because that's not the word, but it makes you more susceptible to certain pressures that you would normally be able to cope with because you've dealt with them before. Now, when it comes to specifically white-only spaces and things like that, white-only is a weird way to put it because, like others have said, you allow allies into spaces. You allow people of different groups into these spaces, that as long as they understand that we're going to be addressing the issues facing this community and things like that, or reflecting about issues within this community and things like that. And I think there's a big value to that. And I think that it frustrates me because people are like, well, oh, you're going to have a white only space. That's scary. Why?
Yeah,
Why
well,
is it scary?
it's because white only spaces usually have white hoods on them.
You know what? Because we do not allow that. You know why that is? Is because society pretty much frowns upon it otherwise. If you want to create a space for white people, you get shit on. Prime has seen this directly. It's happened now. You know, this is
To be clear though, there's like a history of like the term white only was something we used to put on businesses.
That is true, but I think
understand
something
the
that's
historical
the
context.
most important thing to remember here, and this has kind of been brought up around a few times, and Wick has kind of alluded to this or almost directly said it. If you want to make it so that whites only spaces or whatever are like only for racists, then white only spaces will be only for races. You know, it's kind of like when people say shit like oh, like you're a piece of shit, like we don't want you here, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and then like 6 months later, that person is now like in ultra right leaning spaces, and people are like, whoa, what the fuck? Why did he go there? Oh my god, he must have always been a racist. Like, well, if you don't make spaces to include these people, then they're gonna find people that will include them. And so the idea that like this is why like when 4chan started trolling with the "it's okay to be white" shit, the proper response to that was, yeah, it's okay to be white, okay. Yeah. And then you move on. When you make a huge deal about it, when you have some huge fucking outrage about it, everybody looks at you like you're fucking crazy. Now you're the one that's like turning this into a problem. There shouldn't be a problem with like you want to have like a white only space or you want to have like it's okay to be white shit. Yeah, sure, of course it is. Nobody should be disagreeing with that. When you start fighting against it, then you're forcing those spaces to be only occupied by people that are ideologically different than you.
Go ahead, Connor, then Rose.
Yeah, and I just want to let everybody know, including the audience right here, like a lot of people have their own safe spaces, regardless of whether or not they call them that. Anyways, when I was joking about the privately closed Discord or whatever, what's funny about my community, it's literally like 70% like fucking disaffected lefties who like they're way to the left of me on economics, they're probably to the left of me on like progressive issues or whatever, but sometimes they just want to cut loose and be normal and fucking cuss and be, you know, say dumb shit and controversial shit and edgy shit and all that kind of stuff. And what I would say is that because we value each other and we value each other's perspective and we trust each other and all that kind of stuff, you can have those deeper conversations about like, what does it mean for you to be a certain demographic to interact with the society? What kind of society are we building towards? Where are we going? Like all that kind of stuff. And what I would say is, while I think the Twitch panel space does have a lot of value, as far as like getting good ideas out there, they're not as honest. And so a safe space, as previously brought up by Amanda and Destiny, does not have to be exclusively a demographic that it's playing to. It can be those people and their allies. But then the whole point of the safe space is to kind of, somebody said performative pressure. I feel performative pressure now. What is the audience going to think about what I'm saying? What do my peers think about what I'm going to say? What is the host going to think about what I'm saying? Going into a safe space should be like that thing where you can finally just drop all of that bullshit. Hey, this is what I really think. Tell me where I'm fucked up. And that's the value of it. And if there's a whole bunch of white people who don't understand CRT, changing demographics, immigration patterns, climate change, you know, the battle between why is socialism becoming popular again? Why is fascism becoming popular again? These are real conversations that need to be had honestly. And frankly, I think part of the problem that we're having is that we're all in performative spaces in which it's completely unsafe to have these conversations without getting attacked.
And Dylan brought up a point earlier, just real quick. Dylan brought up a point earlier is when white people try to talk about racial issues, they feel they can't. They look over their shoulder. They look to see who's watching because they know that for them, it's dangerous. Other groups do not do that. Other groups do not do that. Yes, it is socially dangerous. If you say the wrong thing, it can have social consequences. Do you disagree?
I guess that maybe I disagree upon like the scale of danger, like that we might be thinking of, because like I mean other people have some sort of danger, right? So like if I say something unfortunate about our trans brothers and sisters, right? There's a social danger to that as well, right? So it's not something exclusive to white people, right?
Certainly, I understand, but when it comes to racial issues specifically, I think that yeah, it kind of is exclusively to white people.
Well, I mean, it's
To be very
exclusively
honest
for
with you.
people to then say something terrible about trans people, then suffer the consequences of that.
It tends to
right?
be more common among the majority groups, basically. Right? I think
you
with
guys-
things, like regardless of which social like thing we're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just make a quick point, because I
Go
think
for
you'll
it.
probably want to address it, Rose.
All right.
So basically, it's like that fear, though. That's kind of like that's part of the problem, but basically, what I want to articulate to Wick's side of the audience is that we used to always have this. Like when we were in a tribal setting and there was only 30 people in that tribe, if you said something fucked up or did something fucked up, there were consequences. The internet freed us from those consequences, and now we're kind of rediscovering mob justice. So we kind of have to figure out how to express ourselves within a community while realizing that there's social consequence.
Yeah, so like to build on like what you just said, like it's sort of like leans into like the whole discourse on like cancel culture, how the general underlying trend, like underlying cancel culture, is by no means anything new, but through like connection with the internet, it's now manifesting itself in like very unique ways, which is why it's like such a big topic of discussion now compared to before. But I agree with you 100% what you said. Now, I do want to talk about something else you mentioned in your previous statements, Counterpoints, in regards to responsibly having conversation, and this is something that was brought up earlier as well, but I feel like it's super important to address it because we need to say this more. Labeling someone something like racist, transphobe, bigot, whatever, is not an argument, and if we keep doing that, that word is going to lose absolutely all meaning, and it's going to be completely worthless, and we're going to lose a lot of descriptive utility doing so. In addition to that, I saw a lot of people when we talked about that previously in multiple of the chats being like, oh yeah, if we're just nice to Nick Fuentes, then he'll change his mind, right? There is a difference, between, hey, let's not just label somebody in the absence of arguments and being super nice and amicable and charitable and, like cozying up to them or whatever. It's about encouraging people to make actual arguments, because we're at the point where those labels have been thrown around so much that to a large majority, especially the type of group of people we're actually trying to convince, that word means literally nothing and they don't care. And the only way we could ever hope by actually reaching these people is by making formal, or like not necessarily, is by just making arguments instead of just throwing labels at people, basically. So that's something super important. Stop using labels, use arguments.
Fascist already doesn't mean anything, by the way. Like,
okay, but so Destiny's being cynical, but let me go ahead and jerk him off a little bit.
I'm not being cynical. No one knows what fascist is, but everybody calls every right winger a fascist. No one has any fucking idea what a fascist is.
Well,
A lot of like a very fascist thing to say.
You can present fascism. If you were to describe it without using the word fascism, the majority of anti-liberal left-leaning people would love to be fascist, by the way. Unironically. Yeah. Like, people should learn more about it.
But what I wanted to say with that whole like talking about like social consequence, how do we communicate to people and all that kind of stuff, this is where I did want to give some credit to the debate brosphere and Destiny in particular. I don't think anybody watched any of his like biggest debates and they were like, oh, he sure called that guy a Nazi. That was fucking powerful. Basically what happened was it was like, okay, what's your actual argument? What are the underlying, basically evidence for your argument? Why is that stupid? Here's a counter argument that I think better describes the world. And as much as like we can pretend that basically nobody is affected by that argumentation, it's completely wrong. I was a part of the anti-social justice warrior sphere 4 years ago, just as much as everybody else. I like to think that at this point, I probably have better understanding of left-wing positions than some fucking lefties do at this point, because I've been engaging in these spaces. So I don't think that the dialogue is useless. I don't think the debate brosphere is useless. And I think that as much as it's easy to shit on the Twitch space as being unproductive, I don't know. I've had some fucking badass conversations on this motherfucker, so I'm not fucking shitting on this.
So I wanted to go back to the whole thing about safe spaces. The way Dylan described them, getting away from the majority. You made two definitions, but getting away from the majority and being able to vent and all that. But then you made a distinction between that and what it would look like. It should look like within a white space, saying that, well, like you're not being oppressed by like the wider culture, but this is a place of reflection, right? Where we can say like, well, did I do a racism that one time?
Well, unless it's on Twitter, in which case it is very much insulating yourself from.
Oh yeah, probably. But this idea of a safe space and this idea of being under siege is out there, right? For white individuals, right? We see this all the time when we're talking about race. We see it all the time on conservative media, right? That white people are under siege and they can't do this, they can't do that, right? If a white man says something, he's going to be like, this is fucking what Joe Rogan's point was, right? Like if a white man like says like a joke, he's going to be canceled. He's not going to be able to go outside. Like soon enough, all white men will just have to stay inside because they're going to do something offensive when they're out in the public, right? This idea of being under siege, right? So when you're talking about creating a space for white people, I think a reasonable objection would be that like it helps further this siege mentality, right? Well, of course we have to be here together alone because those people would judge us and they would throw barbs at us. They'll make us feel bad and they would cancel us, right? If we were talking out there, right?
Well,
and maybe our ideas should, and if that's your mindset, maybe your ideas really should be out there so that they can be examined.
Well, most likely they're right though. That most like if they feel uncomfortable saying something in front of a black person, it's probably for good reason, right?
I reject that.
Well, I think that if you're uncomfortable saying something in front of a black person, there's a higher likelihood than average that it would be offensive to a black person, right?
It's possible, but I think some of these spaces, at least online and away from the real world, at least online, I think some of these spaces have gotten so toxic that like even people with well-meaning questions can just end up in a fucking minefield of destruction where like if they say the wrong thing, they feel like they've been maligned as being completely and totally racist and irredeemable. I think that's totally possible to be well-meaning and worry about stepping into that.
It's not only possible, it's happened, especially in online spaces where I've gone in, I don't know everything. I try to learn and I ask a question and boom, next second I'm banned. Oh, he's giving right-wing talking points.
Yeah, it's like that. It's not my job to educate you, bigot. Right? It's that type of thing.
And
exactly, it's not my job to educate you. It's like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, so like, where else am I supposed to go if no one else is going to answer my question? But there's this group of people who say, "Hey, friend, we'll answer your question. Come into our group. You know, we won't shun you." There's people preying on this, but we got to understand that when you do this, when you shut down conversation, when you seek to just shut down any kind of conversation, you lead people, you make people more vulnerable to very bad actors in these spaces. And it's causing problems.
So I want to say, sorry, real quick, Wordy. I just want to say I have a solution here. I'll let it go in a second. Being publicly cringe. That's it. Just go into public, be cringe. It's what I do every single day. We're gonna make more room for more people to be cringe. That's all it is.
Yeah. So in that instance, then the question isn't about creating safe spaces. It's about detoxifying and decreasing like the performative nature of public spaces. Basically, is like the Twitch politics Discord. If anybody hung out there at all, shout it out. There's a guy named Peacecraft. We were having a conversation about like transgenderism itself, and like he's generally opposed to it. And I'm non-binary, so like. And in that instance it's about creating where the public space is where you aren't going to necessarily have to like resort to like calling people names or doing all that shit, right? You can, you basically have to have the hope that they're engaging in good faith, right? It requires a certain amount of elements. It requires good faith. It requires the detoxifying of like public cancellation and all that shit. And in that instance, if you really take those two elements and then you have them all coming in together, then you can like actually like engage and try to change people's minds. And I think if you break down those two elements to a degree to where you can exist in normal like online spaces, then you can really start to have like good conversations. It's those two elements primarily, I think, in public spaces more than creating safe spaces.
Okay, so I wanted to, before we get too far away from it, and I see your hand there, Rose. Before we get too far away from it, though, should minorities have to educate you, right? There was a reaction here, but there. I mean,
it depends on the space that you want to inhabit. If you are like a normal black person, I guess, and you're just like on your day-to-day life. And like white people are constantly, I can't even imagine, like asking like weird shit that you don't feel like you should have to answer for. Think that's fair. Like, dude, it's not my job to have to explain like this or that. But if you want to inhabit like online debate spaces or social conversation spaces, like it's really stupid of you to be in that area and then to complain about like, oh, like it's not my job to educate you. It's like, motherfucker, this is literally what you're doing online, is educating people. Like, what, unless you like name yourself or like dedicate yourself to a space where you're not like taking like contrary points of view. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's a pretty toxic viewpoint in general if you want to be like a quasi public figure or whatever.
I mean, it's always good to educate people. Like, it's a beneficial thing you're doing if you're educating people, right? So nobody's going to be like, wow, like this education's bad from this person. No. But of course, like people get tired of doing it constantly, right? Like after like the third or fourth or fifth time of me explaining, like, yes, me being like, look, a queer is not a meme, right? Which is a legitimate thing I had to like deal with. Like it got pretty annoying, and I could easily see like somebody asking me questions about that, like getting annoying quickly. But me not doing it is me making the mental note that I don't want to engage in this conversation about this because I'm personally annoyed and exhausted, not because it's the best thing to do. I would be acknowledging that like me educating them or the audience in general would be more beneficial, but that I'm just like personally exhausted and I don't want to do it.
Okay, but there's a difference also between, hey, I don't want to engage with this right now. I just don't want to answer you. There's a difference between that and then saying, oh, you asked this, ban, you're gone. Or you asked this, you racist piece of shit. How dare you question me? There's a difference. And Destiny said it very well. Again, if you want to put yourself out there as an educator and an entertainer on a space, people are going to expect to be educated and entertained. And if it's this weird dissonance when they come into a space and say, oh, look at this educator and entertainer, I have a question. And they say, I'm not here to educate you. Then why are you here?
Circle jerk.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this though is that you can be very efficient as a pseudo public persona. If there's a question that you get asked over and over again, literally make a 20-minute fucking video ranting out all of your fucking bullet points, outline that shit, and then next time somebody asks you that shit, click that shit, copy it, and fucking post it in their fucking link. I do that shit all the fucking time. It's awesome. Fuck you, buddy. I don't have 20 minutes to explain it. Here's a fucking link, bitch.
What's it like? Yeah, bastard cop. 20-minute video. Okay, go ahead.
And then as a general rule, I think like a general rule that works most of the time when it comes to whether or not somebody should be explaining something or not, if the question is in response to something that you have put out or something you've posted about or a video that you've made, I think it's probably, you don't have like an obligation, but you should probably respond to that and like answer that question, right? If someone just unprovoked sends you a comment or sends you a message like, hey, explain this to me, not necessarily, but if it's in response to something that you have put out there onto a public platform for other people to interact with, probably the best thing to do there would be to like respond to people's interactions with that thing that you put out in the first place.
So could part of this problem be disingenuousness, right, in judging that on a platform? So I liked what Dylan said. It was a point that I was going to go towards, right? Saying that, well, he came out and then people had questions about him, right? And I'm sure most of those questions were by genuine individuals who really want to know, more about it, this experience they don't have, or maybe the experience they do have. They're just trying to explore that, one or the other. But they started asking them this, right? And eventually it just, it gets a little much for you. But along with that, there are people who are clearly trying to get at you, trying to either degrade you, right? Asking very personal questions about like your sex life or something like that. And sometimes the line between those two things isn't clear, right? And you as a creator, you've been there talking about issues, and this is like the 20th time, right? The other 19 times you dealt with it, you're funny or whatever, right? And you rolled with it, but then this time it's too much, right? You're thinking you could literally even think that this is like an organized thing, because that happens, right? Organized, where people come in specifically to harass you on something, right? So your response could be to a wick, right, who comes in, and I think you're a genuine person from my interactions with you, that like you're trying to ask this question, but what they're seeing is something else. They're seeing those 19 other people. They're seeing all those other interactions. Maybe when they took the time to talk to the 19th person, right, it turned out they were an actual troll. And then taking that even into offline spaces, right? Well, you could have similar things where, like, one, we're trying to get things done, right? So like this could still be an activist space like Destiny was talking about, right? One where like presumably want to educate people, but one, you're trying to get things done, and two, it's the people who show up. You never know what their intentions are, right? And so it can just be easier to say a rule is like, well, we're not. Our job here isn't to educate you. We're just going about like whatever, like fighting police brutality or something like that, right? And that's your job. And then if you want to come back to this space right afterwards, that's different. Like after you've actually made some sort of effort, right? Because I think that's another thing too, right? People who don't actually make any effort expect you to answer all their questions, right? Like I won't take the time to Google when I'm sitting in front of a computer, right? So I think that's part of it. So let's go to Counter, then Rose.
Yeah, so this is actually why I have a meme folder. And basically I have like my memes broken down into different memes, and one of them is labeled troll. And one of the memes in that folder is literally like I think it's LeVar Burton from fucking Reading Rainbow, and in the background it says, Google that shit. So instead of fucking answering motherfuckers, I'll literally post memes at them, basically directing them to do things that are exhausting, because then they understand that I'm being playful. If they're a troll, I trolled them back. I have a direct response. And then on top of that, like I would invite creators, because it is exhausting. Two, when you see repeated questions over and over and over again, create a 20-minute video, 10-minute video discussing the subject. That way you can link it. That way, if it's a troll, they get the answers. If it's a genuine person, they get the answers. And then on top of that, what I would tell the audience right now, because chat is a bunch of degenerate pieces of fucking shit, and I hate every single one of you, is basically the fact that, like, hey, like, if you don't put a fucking argument under your comment and you just type in disagree, fuck you. Like, come at me with a fucking argument or don't comment anything. If you think I'm wrong, I want to know why, because I want to learn and become a better human being, whereas you're a degenerate chat piece of shit and you can go fuck yourself.
The
Rose.
other danger.
Okay, we're
with
moving
having-
on. I wanted to learn more about his meme folder. Come on, give me some other bangers out of that.
The other
Rose has been waiting. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a short thing because Connor covered most of the things I was going to say. So if you're getting a question for the 20th time, it means two things. It means number one, you should be prepared, and number two, it's an important fucking question, most likely. So in that situation, if it's a question you're getting so many times, it is clearly something that is like present. Could be because maybe you don't explain this thing good enough in the original piece of content. Could otherwise be because this is a central point to whatever message you're trying to promote. At that case, you should 100% make a video, make a Q&A, make a little write-up in a Google Doc. You just copy paste whenever somebody makes that question. Make a bot that answers it for it, depending on what platform you're on. But you should probably like meet that question if it's something that you're getting like 20 times or whatever. If somebody asks like a question that's tangentially related that requires you to write a 5-page thesis, okay, maybe you don't need to answer that question. But if it's something that you're getting 20 times, then yeah.
Wait.
Okay, the other danger here is when you say, yeah, just Google that shit. There's a danger the other person will be like, okay, let's Google that shit. They Google it. Oh, Tucker Carlson, who's this? They have a lot to say on this subject. Wow, that's really interesting. Oh, Stormfront? What's this group? Let's go. Let's see. And you see the danger here? You see the thing that might happen if you tell people to go off on their own to learn these things.
But do you think that people should be responsible to some extent for their own education, right? Like,
yes, obviously.
Like,
No,
yeah, like-
we don't use an argument anywhere else.
Wait. I'm not saying we shouldn't educate them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is people sometimes do need to take an active role in learning their own shit, right? Like going onto Wikipedia pages to learn things about like Guantanamo Bay and shit.
I mean, like, there's the famous Xavier tweet. The best thing this guy's ever contributed to the internet is, right? Like, you tell somebody, like, go do your own research. And they're like, okay, Google's topic. Hello, this is Dennis from PragerU. And then there you go. Now they've done their research. Like, why would you cede that ground? Why would you even risk that happening? Like, if it's a topic you can speak easily on, just do it. If it's going to be something stupid, like the "are traps gay" question, right? I can understand, like, banning shit like that. But if it's, like, directly in your wheelhouse, like...
We're not getting paid, motherfucker.
Amanda.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of bring it back around to safe spaces, and if white people should have these safe spaces. And safe spaces to me are often because collectively this group of people have experienced some form of trauma. And I guess my question is what kind of collective trauma would a white space
I don't believe in the term collective trauma, and I don't believe that most people are quote unquote traumatized, or I don't think that needs to be like a requirement for like a safe space. So for instance, it might be the case that you could be like like some like religious group, and you feel like there's just a lot of like dumb shit that you have to deal with, but you might not necessarily be traumatized. It just might be like this is kind of an annoying thing. It's nice to have a space to talk about this or whatever. I don't think it necessarily has to be like a requirement for there to be trauma to have like a safe space. I think it might just be if there's a group of people that feel like they need like some area to like air grievances, and they feel like it's hard to do that or to have conversations and feeling not judged. I mean, if anybody feels like they need that space, I think that's probably a good enough reason to give it to them instead of trying to start testing like, do you deserve this space or not?
But Stephen, right? Like that was my point previously, is that there is a perceived sense of collective trauma, right?
I totally disagree. I don't think that's there might be, if we talk about classes, we can, but I don't think an individual perceives things on a class level. I don't think I just don't think that's possible.
Hold on. You don't think that there has been, especially in the right wing, right, the right wing press, a cultivation of a victimhood that you and I might agree doesn't actually exist, is based on not much of anything, but that still that identity, that collective trauma, but identity of trauma is still being cultivated within those spaces. Would you agree that's a thing that's happening, Stephen?
Okay, let's just, I guess, maybe define what do we mean when we say collective trauma?
So like in like a safe space, if it's like you have like like a safe space for like queer people, right? Like the whole like commonality of like a homophobia, heteronormativity, but that blah 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 blah. Like it's not necessarily we attribute to like individuals in this instance. We talk about how like generally society treats us. Like there is some level of like safe spaces that do exist for that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like you can't get traumatized by a societal experience. Like you need an individual experience there, right? Yep. Because like if that was the case, like it's everything is relative, right? So like technically nobody in America is
even just not really true. There's been studies that have shown that like things that are shown on TV and stuff have developed collective trauma.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but I would just call it trauma. That's just trauma. Like if you've been exposed to like harmful things in media or whatever, then yeah, I would say that's like just trauma.
Biggs, hold on for just a second. I want to get to you because I know you have something to say on this issue. So I'm gonna get back to you. But like, so let's move away from the language of trauma, right? I think there might.
We can use trauma, just not collective trauma. It just sounds really weird to me. But maybe, yeah. But go ahead.
Well, the point maybe victimhood might be where I'm getting at, right? A sense of victimhood, and which you may perceive as someone may perceive as trauma, right? Whatever, right? But to say that like we're being wronged by the brown people, right? They're taking your jobs, right? Taking your women because you own them, and all that, and so I need a space to get away from all those people, right? So I'm relating this in that that's what these spaces can become, right? It's like because I do perceive, whether it's real or not, that I'm under siege, that this space becomes inherently toxic.
But that could be true of literally every single safe space, right? We can argue like some safe spaces could become toxic. We shouldn't let them to do it, or we shouldn't let them become toxic. But to argue that like this class or group of people don't deserve a safe space, like there are probably black safe spaces that are toxic. There are definitely mental health safe spaces that are toxic. There could be gendered safe spaces that are toxic. Like any of these places have the potentiality to become toxic, right? But that doesn't mean we just disbar them completely. It means we should talk about how we do safe spaces, I think.
Oh man, I want to go after Biggs, but I can answer this question directly.
Okay, so we actually have, so kind of to this point directly, we have a lot of actual data through surveys and studies that show that, especially when you brought up Prime, the like the alt-right and stuff like that, and like how white people may feel like they're being attacked. The majority of what people say in these surveys and these studies is that they personally don't see it, but they see it as a whole from the actual like as like white people in general. So I think that it's kind of one of those things like you guys are both kind of right. So the perception is that white people are being oppressed by white people or by other, races or whatever, but individually they don't actually admit to being oppressed themselves. So I think it's more of a perception issue, and like the studies bear this out like 100%. Like it's more of just a contrived and perceived thing, but then they say in their own lives they don't actually see it. So it's kind of like a catch-22. You and Destiny are kind of both right, where like individually, like most people would say that they're not being harmed by discrimination, but as a whole, white people think that maybe white people in general are being discriminated against. So I think it's kind of like a catch-22. It's more of a perception issue.
Can I? And I want to tell you exactly, because I'm a straight white male, so I can speak to my lived experience. So basically, what I would complain about, and what I think is actually a fair bitch that would be cross the white manosphere, is I'm working my ass off. I'm paying my taxes. I'm paying my bills. I can't get ahead, and I'm not allowed to complain about it. And that's the fact. That's like the main fucking thing. Now you can ascribe that to toxic masculinity, but also if I was to take these, these bitches to the left wing or whatever, then basically what would happen? One, they would probably tell me to start reading more feminist theory, and then two, they would basically say that I had, historical privilege. So my problems aren't as big as everybody else's. Three, I'm lucky to even have these fucking problems in the first place because these are, working class or middle class privileges. To even be able to afford your bills in the first place, to even be able to pay your taxes in the first place, to even be able to work your ass off and provide for your family, which I understand, but my back hurts. I have a fucking headache. My bills are barely paid, and it's all my fault.
It's all your own fault.
And I got kids that I need to take care of. But I can't fucking complain without being told that I'm privileged. And I understand white privilege is separate from regular privilege and all that kind of shit. And I'm not, I love complaining because I'm fucking Irish. But like, holy shit, can you see how having that pressure cooker of bullshit on you at all times, and then you go out into the world and fucking complain, and they're like, you got it easy. Like, fuck you, you pussy. Like, what are you complaining about? You got it easy.
Well, that's why you need your safe space.
Yeah.
Connor.
So for
That's
our
what-
remaining time,
This is
why-
it.
This is what I want to talk about for our remaining time, and I'll toss it to Dylan. Is the language of privilege and how that's handled. Do you think it's fair? Do you think there's room for improvement, and how this is handled, like white privilege specifically, and how this is handled? Or do you think that the backlash to it is overblown? Right. I think there's some valid criticisms of this, but like, is what you see mostly imagined harmed? And so let's go to Dylan.
So I think that the describing to people who like the nuances of intersectionality and privilege is very difficult, because what you're doing when you talk to somebody, and I remember trying to have this conversation with my grandmother because she like asked me about it because she just wanted my opinion about it because she saw some news segment or something, and it was difficult because in her mind she and her husband grew up not very wealthy. They had to deal with a lot of struggles. They had to come up not very wealthy. Her husband had to go to Vietnam to get certain benefits to make by, and like he fought in a war, and it was like very like difficult getting by. And he grew up on a farm castrating pigs. And so for her to just hear, "Oh, you're privileged," to her, it like erased the entire history and struggle of her working class background, and she didn't like being grouped in that way and being like designated the privilege, because what you'll hear about, like, well, with whiteness comes wealth, comes power, comes all that, and from her perspective she didn't have that. And so it's difficult to explain the nuances of like, well, we're not saying you didn't have economic privilege or go through struggles, but we're saying that over certain other Americans who don't have white skin and aren't perceived as white, there's certain challenges you don't face. It's not to say you didn't face challenges. That, while that might be true, it's very difficult to communicate to people, and they don't really want to be told that they're privileged because they had to face struggles. They people identify very strongly in this country with being working class. They take a lot of pride in it, and like they feel like this kind of like that your privilege statement is erasing that history. And so there has to be a way to like communicate like how how white privilege is separate from like economic or like privilege. And that question of intersectionality and having that conversation is very difficult with people who like have, a lot of pride, obviously.
Well, in Prime, I want to point out that like when I'm a fragile white man and I'm very sensitive, okay, I have a lot of emotions, and so when I brought up my my bitches and my moans and my gripes as a collective identity, you asked if my my pain was imagined to a different white man. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's like I have my pain. I'm fragile. I'm being vulnerable with you, and you're like, are you just imagining this shit? Hey, Dylan, is Connor a pussy? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
So I guess who is going to hold the all-white male safe space panel next?
I do have
Let's
something
go
to
to-
say on this.
I'll
so,
bite down a bullet for you, Prime. Okay.
sure, got you, buddy. Let's go to Wick.
Okay, so when we talk about white privilege specifically, I think it does have value in academic spaces, in universities, in psychological and sociological academic studies, and spaces like that. However, when you try to bring that into the normal sphere of things, to the online sphere of things, I think it actually does damage. Because when we couch it in these terms like white privilege, that is couching it in a way that assumes that, oh, you have something that needs to be taken away from you, where we don't want to do that. I don't want to make it, and I'm assuming you don't want this either. You don't want me to be brutalized by the police to the same level as a minority. I don't think that's the goal, is it? No, the goal is entirely the opposite. We want to change it so that you do not have to worry as a minority about the police the same way someone who is white wouldn't have to worry about that. And so when we talk about these things in the terms of white privilege, again, I think it does harm. And there are studies, and I'll post it in the private chat of us, that show that when you talk about things in terms of white privilege and we talk about things in terms of whiteness, there are studies that show that it makes people more callous to the struggles of white working class citizens. And this is not good. This is not what we want. Because Prime, I want you to have white privilege. I really do. I want to give my white privilege to you. I want you to have the same privileges in this country that I have. I really do. I'm not being jokey here. I'm being very serious. So when we talk about white privilege, no. If the topic is the black degradation in this country, which happens, then let's call it that. There's people of color have been treated like shit in throughout the history. So we need to talk about it in those terms.
So Wick,
Okay, but
Wick beat me to it, saying with that last sentence, right? Stephen here has yelled at me many times about a leftist language. And I think, at least when it comes to the language of white privilege, I think it would be better if it was called like a minority penalty rather than white privilege. It's not necessarily that a white person has something. It's that they're not experiencing something that a black person might be experiencing, right? Or a minority person might be experiencing, because only a certain few actually have what we would call a privilege within society, and those people are rich, frankly, right? And everyone else, if you tell them they have that privilege, like rightfully so, they're not going to be able to see what that is because of the experiences that Dylan was talking about. So instead of you saying, well, minorities have a penalty that they're constantly dealing with, right? Then it puts the focus on their experiences any which way, and like how they can be negative within our nation. Go ahead, Rose.
Yeah. So I typically don't like the framing of these discussions, like, is X academic concept good or beneficial or not? To me, asking that is the same as asking, is deriving functions beneficial for society? Well, yes, if you apply it properly and you explain it properly. No, if you fucking do it wrong, right? So, for instance, if you have people who are in a very nuanced, in a very exact, in a very descriptive way, able to explain exactly, hey, this is what, white privilege is, this is the effects it has, yada, 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 then that's positive. If you have people saying that white privilege means that white people are always going to be better than non-white people at all situations, in all like instances, in all engagement, in all interactions ever, yada, 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 that's negative. That's bad. Now, if you're asking me about the descriptive state of that concept right now as it exists in the like public or in the political sphere of things, I would say that it's been definitely like co-opted by a lot of people who aren't really able to explain it properly, and therefore a lot of people have a poor idea of it. I don't think it's as far gone as the concept of toxic masculinity, for instance, which if you run polls on that, you will see that the vast majority of people, both men and women, have instinctive negative reactions towards even hearing that term. So I don't know if white privilege is on the same level as that yet. But I think that just the framing of the discussion is, hey, is this concept valuable? Is this beneficial? I don't think that's the right place to or the good framing of the discussion. I think it's, hey, if you do it good, it's going to be positive. If you do it bad, it's going to be shitty. And like that's the general take on that.
Wordy, Connor, and Dylan, make it quick because
yeah. So like I think what a big focus and then we talk about is like what like when talking about white privilege, we talk about people's interactions in relation to like the normative society, right? When we talk about like heteronormativity, we're not talking about like queer people just being like say treated this way. It's specifically treated in the way the relation to what the expectation of society is. So in that instance, maintaining the language, maintaining the focus on normative society as opposed to just minority like treatment, it puts the emphasis on how society is constructed and the problems that come with that. So it just placing the emphasis on them instead of recognizing they're being treated by the common society is the emphasis of white privilege. And I really disagree with like breaking like keeping academic spaces and social spaces away from each other. I think that's the problem, the relationship that exists is that we need to break down those barriers to have those conversations, because in the way we maintain like this like a this pseudo like there's a high level of like academicness, you basically have people like now dealing with this and you have the reactions. But if we're able to break
Okay.
down those barriers,
I'm just going to interject real quick because I strongly disagree. The reason why it's dangerous is that it's not teachers that are breaking down these barriers. It's someone who took one class or maybe read an article online. Now they think that they're educated and they go out and they'll do it wrong and they'll do it poorly. And this is what's happening. This is what we see happening. So the dangers, the reason we want to keep academic spaces, we want to make sure that the people who are teaching academic concepts are trained to do so properly. Because if you just allow anyone to do that in these academic spaces, it can lead to some real harm.
Let's go to Connor, then.
Yeah, so I fucking think that black or brown or LGBTQ penalty verbiage is fucking awesome. And the reason why I think it's awesome is because I think it's easily pitched to conservatives. Because number one, we talked about how like there's a knee-jerk reaction against the language of privilege. I'm not saying that you can't use that with people or educate people over time, but I think the penalty makes a lot of fucking sense, because basically like I want everybody to have what I have. Despite me being a middle-class, wagey, white person who busts my fucking ass and has back pain, my bills are paid, I have food, my air conditioning works, right? So I consider myself blessed in a lot of ways. So if there's people who can't get access to my very minimal standard of living, that fucking sucks. So how do we remove these penalties in order to make sure that people can achieve what I can achieve? I do understand Wordy's point that like you want the collective society to think about what it's doing, because realistically they're the ones imposing the penalty. But at the same time, I think that's a really cool way to think about it that conservatives will vibe with. So I just wanted to say that.
Dylan.
I remember like growing up, and I grew up in like Prince George's County, which is a majority black county. And so I grew up when like the Michael Brown situation and a lot of this stuff was like a hot topic that was being discussed because of like the like environment that was in the country, that's still in the country. And I remember like these first times hearing things like white privilege and stuff like that. And it was less of and every single time I heard that, it kind of like when I was younger, like pissed me off. And the reason it pissed me off is the reason that I described earlier, that I thought that this was this thing erasing like the stuff that I've experienced, erasing my background, saying that everybody thinks I have it good because I'm white and I got my own struggles to deal with. I got my own background and problems and stuff. And just painting that blanket when I'm my own individual with my own problems is terrible. And that's the way I viewed it. And I think that way that to explain it easier to people like Prime and other people were talking about earlier as less of like privileges, even though like that's something you could undoubtedly call it, but more the disadvantages that other groups face makes it easier to explain it. And I think a lot more people will be more willing to hear that because they don't feel like their experience is being erased. You're just talking about the experiences of other people and the unique experience they face when it comes to certain disadvantages. Right? Like I feel like me saying I have a certain disadvantage in this country when it comes to adoption rights, and the fact that a lot of adoption facilities wouldn't adopt to me. Another disadvantage, and I could go through those. I can list those out, and nobody could like object to that because I'm not like saying you didn't go through a working class struggle, you didn't have a hard job. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about my experience.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, it centers it on you, and rather than like a straight privilege, right, or a cis privilege that's you don't have to deal with these things. Okay, so to my audience, we are going to roll on to an open walk-on panel right after this, right? The content continues. We're not over here, right? But if you've enjoyed what you've seen here so far, right? If you've enjoyed that, then hit that follow button. Hit that follow button right this second. Make sure notification bell is on, because we do this all the time, right? 6 days a week we have these conversations, and we try new things, right? We try maybe problematic things, but yeah, I thought this space, doing something like this, we could actually get something of value. And if you agree with me, then hit that follow button, because we're always doing more of this type of stuff, right? Hit that follow button right now and make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. So thank you, though. All right, so now I'm going to give these people an outro. Before that, though, one last thing I want to say on this is that it was when I announced this, something that was said was like, well, you're not going to hear anything new, right? That one, what will be said here is just things that you've heard before, and that in itself means this endeavor has no value, right? Which, I disagree, because we have the all black everything, we've had all trans everything. I'm not sure if we've said anything that's like game changing in those spaces, but I think there's still value in those spaces, even if an original thought isn't made. But also, it was interesting because they came with an expectation that I, as a minority, should already know what white people are thinking. I do not. I don't. I don't know your opinions. I don't know your thoughts, because I haven't gone through your experiences, right? And so when I proposed this almost uniformly from like African Americans and other minorities, right? Black Americans, they were saying that they really wanted to see this. They really wanted to hear about this, because they're curious too, right? We don't just like, I don't have telepathy, right? Or else I would have read Steven's bank account and would have I would have taken advantage. But no, I don't have that, so I can't read white people's minds. So I think it's useful to talk about these things and understand not like the right answer to what whiteness is, but like what you think whiteness is, you as white people, because those opinions matter. You're part of a democracy here. And those political opinions turn into policy, rather they are academically correct. So I'm glad that we're able to do this. I'm glad it wasn't Mimi, and what my point wasn't to dunk on white people. That's dumb. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. So I'll give you all an outro. Thank you, Rose Wrist, for being around, for being here, for being part of this. Is great. I know this is an inconvenient time for you, but you stuck around any which way. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for having me. What I'm most proud of across this entire stream is very simply that we have managed to expose all the closet conservatives, progressive grifters that have been on this panel, okay? Because clearly, none of the so-called progressives, the American progressives this would be, on this panel voted for Biden. Because if they did, they would clearly not be on a white-only fucking panel, okay? So I
voted for Biden, shut up.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna dig any further down there, but anyway, that's what I'm most happy about in this debate here. But yeah, my name is Rose Wrist. I'm a progressive political content creator. I live in Sweden. I do research documents. I do debates. I do all those types of things. I do want to mention one thing to Destiny. If you want to have a conversation on there's two things that I disagree with that I've made videos on as well. Your take about the treatment of Nazis and socialists, and then some discussions on Lauren Southern. I would gladly have the discussion. If not, that's fine. It's 5 a.m. I would gladly end stream and do something else as well. So it's up to you. But yeah, we could have that conversation if you wanted to. That could be interesting. But yeah, thank you all very much for having me on here. And thanks to chat for watching.
Thank you so much. All right.
Yeah, if you ever want to.
Yeah.
Are you available after this panel, or?
I'll probably stand here for a bit because I'm sure some people are going to come on screeching. So.
Okay. Oh, fantastic! Yeah. Put your link in the chat, Rose, for everyone in my Twitch chat, so everyone can find you.
Oh yeah.
Next we have Wick. Wick, thanks for coming on. Wick, as always, you're going to say something that is going to drive other people insane. My Twitch chat agrees with me, but I'm glad that you share those opinions. That's exactly the point of all this: is that some people are going to say things that aren't exactly quote unquote PC or within the mainstream leftist thought, right? But that's valuable because you're a person who was a part of our society, and what your thoughts and opinions are important. So thank you.
Well, I really appreciate being allowed to come on here and express some of these views. Is It's been fun. I've enjoyed it, and I have some disagreements overall with some people, but I think I've it was very amiable overall. I hope that you got what you wanted out of this, PrimeCayes, and I hope that you learned some things. I know I did, and I think that's very important. Now, I will say this, that you know, it's okay to disagree with me, but I tried very hard not to be virtue signaling on this panel. I tried very hard to come in and just give you honest, realistic things that I've seen, I felt. I'm not trying to be politically correct here. I'm not trying to score points or anything like that. But if you want to follow me, you can at twitch.tv/deathofcertainty. And I try to give everyone a space to have their opinion. I try to give everyone a space to have their say. And yeah, I'd love to come on with Destiny too at some point, but I don't know if I disagree with him on much. But hey, it'd be cool. But yeah, thanks, guys.
I'll say that there's so much more that I actually want to dig into in the intricacies of whiteness and how it interacts with your lives, right, daily. I think that we didn't really get to dig into that. But still, I think this is very valuable. And I thank you all for sharing. Counterpoints. Goddamn VIP here, right? Counterpoints. Thanks again. As always, you come through when I need you, right? Other people who disappeared did not want to be a part of this, but you stuck around for the whole thing. You watched all that happen. And I knew you would, right? I had no doubt that you would.
Fuck them. Let's have fun. Let's go for the memes, right? But I'm happy to be on the first ever weekly all white everything panel. Can't wait to come on to the next ones. And for those of you who want to follow me, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. You can type in !CONOR, !CONOR into the chat if you want to follow me. And basically identify as center center right. I'm a politics, philosophy, science fiction, and whatever nerd. And for my outro, I want to read the last two stanzas of Bo Burnham's Straight White Male. So straight white man, I know the road looks tough ahead. The women want rights. The blacks want to be not called the blacks. Sorry. Can't you just leave us alone? Also no to the things you asked for. Straight white man, I know the road looks tough ahead. The women want rights. The African Americans, it doesn't work with the rhythm. We used to have all the money and land now, and we still do, but it's not as fun now. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. All right. Def comedy, Def poetry slam right here. All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. Next, we have Dylan, another illustrious white man. Right. Dylan, thank you for being a part of this. Your perspective, especially, was different, and like talking about your background and how that's colored your view of all this stuff. I think was great.
We don't use the word anymore.
Can't.
Yeah. We don't use the word colored anymore. But I'm part of the European diaspora, and I'm happy that we finally had a European diaspora panel for other people native to the Caucasus Mountain regions, and our united struggle is finally getting attention that it deserves. I'm hoping Vice will follow up with articles about this revolutionary moment and the white man's struggle for recognition in the United States as we fight with our brothers and sisters across the world and everywhere. And I also want to thank Brother Destiny and his struggle as another white man who has won the Hippy Dippy Championship and bringing glory to the people and the community. I appreciate that. I know
it came back home. It came back home, right?
It came back home, and I'm very proud of it because I know I've become the nefarious Dylan Burns TV from my terrible screw job, but we've brought it back to the community. I'm very touched. You can find me at Dylan Burns TV, DYLANBURNS TV on YouTube and our Twitch. I'm trying to get to 50K subs on YouTube, so I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, let's make it happen for Dylan. I have just his Twitch channel there, but if you throw your YouTube channel or something, let's get Dylan a 50K. Yeah. Okay. Next, Steven. Thank you for joining here and being as bombastic as you usually are, but still giving a nuanced take somehow. It's very much appreciated. You add a lot to this, And yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. I look forward to the after panel.
Fuck's sakes. All right. There's nothing heartfelt from you with these openings and closings. It's just
Well,
okay.
you have like 12 people to do opening and closing, so it's like 20 minutes of like opening and closing. It's a lot of shit. Fuck opening and closing on this shit. Okay, just fucking get into it.
All right, shut up. All right, next, Biggs.
Yeah.
Biggs. Thank you for
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me, Prime. I appreciate it. If any of y'all want to follow me, I stream at twitch.tv/BIGGZ8500. You can find me on Twitter at the same BIGGZ8500 and on YouTube. I just want to thank everybody for coming on here. I know there was some drama leading up to the stream, but I'm glad everybody that came through. And I was actually surprised at how civil this conversation was. And I think that with all the drama beforehand, all the worry that it was going to be this, debacle or whatever, I think that was all overblown. I think that you guys were all amazing, and I look forward to speaking to all of you again. And have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wordy as well. Wordy, thank you for coming through. One of our last minute grabs to put this all together, and we're glad to have you here. You added quite a lot to this. Wordy, tell a bit about yourself.
I'm one of the most oppressed people in the world of online spaces. You got the tankies hating on me one side, you got the liberals saying you'll never get what you want, and I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to keep pursuing what I want, keep trying to make everybody's lives better. Yeah, I'm a Wordy talks, talk wordy to me. I'm a shit poster first and con second. And Rose, I'm actually going to be reviewing the whole worker co-op doc in the future because I want to try to get a little bread pill on that shit. But yeah, I'll drop my links in chat for you. And yeah, I'm trying to get to affiliate. I'm slowly making my way there. That's the whole goal.
Get them to affiliate. Links in chat. Help them out. All right. Next, last but not least, we have Amanda. Amanda, thank you so much for coming through. I practically begged you to come on, and you did, so thanks. Amanda, thank you for adding everything to this. Go ahead. Do you have any words to say to the chat? Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, I guess, begging me to come on. I learned quite a bit. I'm a little impressed with how this went. I agree with pretty much everyone else's closing statements. But yeah, you can give me a follow, Amanda Smash, on Twitter or Twitch, and I'll start streaming here soon. As soon as my internet's much better. It's getting an upgrade soon. Our new modem.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, to everyone else, again, the content doesn't end. We're going to continue on to our open walk-on panel soon after this. I'm going to do a shill in between then, but we are going to start an open walk-on panel just after this, right? And apparently our friend Steven is going to stick around. I'm going to yell at him about his terrible takes. Now's the time, right? In this open walk-on panel where all its members can join in. That means you sitting at home. So we'd love to have you. Okay. Anyone else here can join the open walk-on panel, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, your knowledge here of my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Thank you so much.